4 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order. It's a minute after 4. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Could all stand, please? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. No. First of all, though, I just wanted to start off for thanking you for all being here tonight. I know as parents, when dealing with our kids, we can get emotional and have lots of passions. But I would ask that we all show respect to one another by allowing one person to talk at a time so as to be heard, not talking over another or shouting out, please. Let's be kind as we all want what's best for our kids and teachers. Also, I'm going to ask that when time comes and you do get to speak, that you do speak nice and loud. Our board member one of our board members has requested that he has a little bit of hard time hearing. So if you could, I know it's even harder with the mask, but if you could try to speak as loud as you can, we'd appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. The other thing I want to announce, if you need to use the restroom, back in the corner, there's a little thing hanging, a lanyard with a bathroom thing on it. So that's what you would take and walk around and go right up the stairs there. Okay? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item B, approval of a flexible agenda.
I'd move approval of flexible agenda.
Second that.
Okay? Approval of a flexible agenda, motion made by trustee Chichester, seconded by trustee Kangas. Is there any public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 7-0. Next item is our consent items. Does anybody want anything pulled from the consent item? Seeing none?
President Gilkerson, I do want to direct everyone to the red folder. There's an updated personnel report for the month of August.
All righty.
One late addition.
Lots are happening. All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'd move we approve the consent calendar as posted.
Okay, a second. Okay. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor to approve the consent item?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay. Next, we have introduction and special recognition this evening. Superintendent Lewis.
I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director of Grants, Assessments, and Accountability, Brian Frazier, for an introduction.
All righty, thank you.
It's one of my favorite times of the year. We have the Dr. F. Gregory Betts Education Foundation Honorarium Award going out. This year we have 3 recipients, each at various stages in their education, both on their way to getting credentials and others on their way towards post-credentialing and furthering their information. Tonight we have Mrs. Doris Betts, Mr. Chris Betts, Doris's son. I was going to say younger son, but I'm not quite sure if it's younger or older where Chris is in the mix. Here to present the awards. Just a quick little background is that Mrs. Betts is a phenomenal educator in her own right. Dr. Betts was superintendent of schools here in Douglas County for a number of years. But Mrs. Betts, I had the honor of working with when she was the Title I person up at the State Department. She taught me well, taught me very sternly, but with a very loving hand too at the same time. So it's been just an honor knowing and working with Mrs. Betts over the years, and certainly in retirement, working with her towards the Education Honorarium Awards too. So the 3 people, if they come on up, please. Sarah Carroll, Montana Hammond, and Allison Kirkwood. Chris and Mrs. Betts, come on up, please. I'll let you guys do the awards here. Typically, I take something from Mrs. Betts's speech when I do this. So I'm gonna go sit down now so I don't get in any trouble. I'll come back up.
Yeah, wait, Brian.
I'm getting off track.
I know that firm hand, by the way. I'm also 1983 Douglas High grad. Admitted in '79. It's an honor to be here with my mom and on my dad's behalf, the Dr. F. Gregory Education Foundation. I'd like to thank Superintendent Lewis and the board for allowing the foundation to continue over the years. Appreciate that. I'd like to give my mom an applause for putting this on her back, running with it over the years. And I'd like to thank the 3 recipients. I read the applications, and one thing that stood out, common theme, was the hard work and dedication that it takes to continue with your education, with families, with a job. It's impressive. Very impressive.
Yes, it's very good to, I've read your applications, they were also well done. And your background so far is very interesting. We have some that are going for their bachelor's, some that are going for their master's. Yes. And for an input, we have sponsored someone, their doctor. So you're allowed to apply for more than once. And so we felt great about that. Thank you for being in education. It's a great, great career. Thank you.
Folks, we've got, these can't be cash, unfortunately. But these can be. These show up better, according to Kirk at least, in the newspaper. So what we'll do is we'll have, the man can work miracles though, so it was bigger. Anyways, if you choose, if you like, we'll take maybe however you want, all 3 at a time.
Hey,
one at
can we,
each.
let's step them into the center square here, where we get a little more room to maneuver.
This is why you're taking the picture.
It's a thing. Yes, ma'am. All right, get out of the.
Sarah?
Thank you. Way to handle that. If you folks, you know what, let's do this. Ladies, you bring it in here. Chris and Doris, takes opposite sides.
You're there?
So seize the corners. And I'm probably gonna take a little bit of an oblique angle at it, just so I get everybody in.
Take your masks off for the picture.
Yeah.
Hey, all right.
We can't even see who it is.
Well, we know who they are. They got big names on their checks.
All right, thanks.
Right on. All right. Sarah?
Well, this could be a fun game. I know. I'm Montana.
Oh.
Montana, yep. That's me, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
You know, ladies, let's go be outside. And that way we can take our masks.
Congratulations.
Yeah, nice. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Look at that.
Thank you. Is that it for ignition?
Geez, how long's the Montana summer? Oh, no, that's not it.
I didn't think
You
so.
ready?
Yeah,
All right.
we're ready. Go ahead.
Is Rita Forcelli here? She is. There's Rita. Rita, will you come up front with Cade? You can see him right there. That's good? Okay. So on behalf of Douglas County School District, I'm honored to have the opportunity to announce that newly retired DCSD graphic design instructor Rita Forcelli won a prestigious Outstanding Career and Technical Educator Award for participation in Skills USA and Career and Technical Education. Ms. Forcelli has been honored with one of Skills USA's highest recognition, the National Educator of the Year Award for her outstanding efforts in guiding Skills USA members to become leaders in their chosen field. This award is not an annual recognition, but rather it is given only when the Skills USA Board of Directors wants to honor an exceptional educator for their service and dedication to career and technical education in Skills USA. Retiring after more than 20 years at Douglas High School, Rita, affectionately known as Miss B, has been a leader in career and technical education. Miss B has taught graphic design and screen printing to thousands of students, many of whom have gone on to successful careers in graphic design, screen printing, or related art fields. She has also coached many gold medalists who were winners at both the state and national Skills USA competitions. Her students have been very involved in a variety of community service projects, and Ms. Borselli ran a successful holiday craft fair as a school fundraiser. Ms. B's students referred to her as amazing, inspiring, a talented artist, one of my favorite teachers, and an inspiration. And other accolades that demonstrate her ability to make a true difference in education, one student at a time. Executive Director of Skills USA, Shelley Travis, said the following about Ms. B. Rita is a Skills USA champion with a true passion for helping students develop their talents and leadership. Her dedication to Skills USA and to career and technical education is inspiring. Douglas County School District is honored to recognize Ms. B for this amazing and well-deserved honor. We also want to thank her for her many years of service, for the incredible impact she has had on as a teacher at Douglas High School, and for the many lives she has impacted in her very important role. Rita will be missed, but your contributions to DHS and DCSD will never be forgotten. Thank you.
I'm gonna tell you something, Mom. I want you all to listen to this. I grew up in Douglas County. It's the best county ever. And our students are so lucky to have this administration and have the teachers that they do. And I am honored to have taught with them for the last 20 years.
We're just getting started. So as you probably noticed, tonight's personnel report was quite extensive with all the hiring DCSD has done over the summer months. Tonight, in consent, you approved several administrative changes, and I've asked them to be here tonight to introduce them to the Board of Trustees. There are 12 of them. Very few of us that are holding the same job that we were last year. So first of all, I'd like Mr. Cade Balagad to stand up. Please stay standing for a minute, Cade. It's not that easy. Mr. Balagad has been hired as the new coordinator of DCSD's career and technical education. For the past 5 years, Cade has served as an assistant principal within DCSD at C.C. McNeely, Gardnerville, and Pinion Hills Elementary Schools. During his time, prior to that, Cade and Mr. Balagad served as a career and technical education teacher for 4 years in Lyon County and 14 years in the Douglas County School District. Cade was honored as the Douglas High School Teacher of the Year during his tenure at DHS. In addition to his work with Douglas County, Cade was a longstanding trustee of the Gardnerville Ranchos General Improvement District, and he can always be found fixing up an automobile. Cade received his associate's degree from Western Nevada Community College prior to earning his bachelor's degree in education from the University of Nevada, Reno. Mr. Balagad has also earned his master's degree in school administration and supervision from the University of Phoenix. Cade, welcome. Shannon Brown. Mr. Brown has been hired as the Assistant Director for District Services. For the past 14 years, Shannon has served as the principal of Gardnerville Elementary School. Prior to that, Mr. Brown served as the teacher and administrator with Twin Rivers Unified School District, formerly known as the Rio Linda Union School District in McClellan Park, California. Shannon should be proud of the school climate he has nurtured and the strong relationships he has built with his school community. During his long tenure at GES, Mr. Brown has demonstrated a commitment to lifelong learning through his participation on many district and state committees. For the past 7 years, he has served as the president of the Douglas County Administrators Association and has advocated on behalf of site administration and has also served on several negotiation teams for the district. Shannon earned his bachelor's degree from the University of California, Santa Barbara He has earned a master's degree in special education and a master's degree in administration, both from the University of California, Sacramento. Mr. Shannon Brown. Adam Dedman. Mr. Dedman is being promoted from his current assistant principal position to the interim principal position at Powell Middle School. Mr. Dedman has served the Powell Middle School community for the past 3 years as an administrator. Prior to arriving at Powell, Adam taught for many years with DCSD at Douglas High School, Carson Valley Middle School, and Kingsbury Middle School. He has also taught abroad in Turkey. Adam is known for his out-of-the-box thinking and a very witty sense of humor. In addition to his duties as a teacher and administrator, Adam has served as a basketball coach at Douglas High School and served as vice president of the Douglas County Administrators Association. Mr. Dedman earned his bachelor's degree at the University of Nevada, Reno, and his master's degree in educational administration through American College of Education. Mr. Adam Dedman. Susan DeRogers. You can come up here a little. You can't hide in the corner. Nice try. Nice try. Ms. DeRogers returns to Douglas County School District in the role of Douglas High School Assistant Principal, following 1 year as the Dean of Students at Carson Middle School. Prior to leaving for Carson City School District, Susan was a longtime teacher at Zephyr Cove Elementary School before moving to Carson Valley Middle School for the 2019-20 school year. Ms. DeRogers was named the Zephyr Cove Elementary Teacher of the Year in 2011 and 2018. Susan is a lifelong learner who has participated in the Nevada Department of Education's Leadership Network and attended the New York City Leadership Academy and Eric Twaddell's PLC seminars. She has served on numerous school and district committees and was an active member of our district's Aspiring Administrators Program. Ms. DeRogers is a graduate of Sierra Nevada College, where she has earned her teaching credential, a Master's of Art in Teaching, and a Master's of Education Administration. Susan DeRogers. Andrew Fromdahl. Mr. Fromdahl has been hired as the new assistant principal at C.C. Meneely Elementary School, returning to where his teaching career started 14 years ago as a third grade teacher. For the past 13 years, Andrew has served as the English language specialist at Jacks Valley Elementary School. Andrew's excellence as an educator was recognized in 2017 when he was named the Douglas County School District Teacher of the Year. Andrew, too, has served on many school and district committees and has served as the chief negotiator for the Douglas County Professional Education Association. Mr. Fromdahl was an incredibly skilled negotiator, and while that process can at times be contentious, he has an amazing ability to fight for what is right, but at the same time, always valuing and maintaining a solid relationship with those on the other side. Andrew has been an active member of the Douglas County Aspiring Administrators Program for the past several years. Andrew earned his bachelor's degree from Oregon State University and has earned a master's degree in teaching from Sierra Nevada College and another in educational leadership from Western Governors University. Andrew Fromdahl. John Glover. I don't know if I saw him. I'll introduce him anyway. Mr. Glover has been hired as the new Dean Athletic Director of Douglas High School. John has taught social studies at Douglas High School since he came to Douglas County School District 20 years ago. During his time at Douglas High School, Coach Glover has also led the DHS baseball program for many seasons and ranks near the top of the program's all-time win list. He may be at the top. I don't think I had an updated record. For the past 2 seasons, John has served as the head coach of the DHS softball program. In addition to his teaching and coaching responsibilities, Coach Glover has served as a high school basketball referee in Northern Nevada. John is a graduate of Carson High School and a former baseball player and graduate of the University of Nevada, Reno, where he earned a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Education and Social Studies. Coach Glover earned his master's degree in Educational Administration from Grand Canyon University. John Glover. Bill Harvey. Bill. Mr. Harvey has been hired as the interim principal of Gardnerville Elementary School. For the past 4 years, Bill has served as an assistant principal at Minden Elementary School and Scarcelli Elementary School. Prior to that, he taught 1 year at Carson Valley Middle School and 15 years at Minden Elementary, where he was named the 2007 MES Teacher of the Year. Bill has served on many school and district committees and is a valuable member of the Epic Learning Steering Committee. Bill is a college graduate of the University of Nevada, Reno, and has earned a master's degree in elementary reading and math through Walden University, and another master's degree in educational leadership from American College of Education. Bill Harvey. The University of Nevada, Reno would definitely be proud tonight. Guy Olguin, I don't know if Guy's here, okay? At the request of Mr. Olguin, I granted him the opportunity to transition from his role of principal to assistant principal at Powell Middle School. Mr. Olguin has served as an administrator in Douglas County School District for 4 years, with the last 3 as the principal at Powell. Prior to moving to the Carson Valley, Guy served for 25+ years as a teacher and administrator for the Newport Mesa Unified School District in Costa Mesa, California. Mr. Olguin earned his bachelor's degree from the University of California, Irvine, and his master's degree from the University of California, Fullerton. Mr. Guy Olguin. Bear with me, we're down to 4. Molly Ravenscroft, I have granted Ms. Ravenscroft's request to transfer from assistant principal position at Douglas High School to the same role at Gardnerville and Scarcelli Elementary Schools. Molly has had an unusual start to her DCSD career, as she was hired in the middle of the full distance learning in the early spring of 2020. In very short order, Molly has proved to be an excellent administrator and has had a great impact at Douglas High School. Prior to her arrival in DCSD, she held the position of Student Support Services Program Manager and Family Community Service Program Coordinator with the Sweetwater Union High School District in Chula Vista, California. She has also served as the Assistant Principal of San Diego Union High School District in Encinitas, California. She was the Association of California School Administrators Region 18, 2018 Administrator of the Year. That's quite the title for continuing and educational options. Ms. Ravenscroft earned her bachelor's degree in political science through the University of San Diego, her teaching credentials through Chico State, and her master's degree in education administration through California State University, San Marcos. Molly is unable to be with us this evening in person as she is on maternity leave after giving birth to her first child, a little baby boy. Sarah Sparhart. Ms. Sparhawk will begin her administrative career as an assistant principal at Douglas High School. Sarah has taught for 4 years in Douglas County School District, serving as a science, social studies, and art teacher at Powell Middle School. Over the past 2 years, Ms. Sparhawk has been an active member of the Douglas County School District's Aspiring Administrators Program. Prior to her arrival in DCSD, Sarah served as a middle school science teacher at Pleasant Valley School in Penn Valley, California, and an art teacher at Antelope High School in Antelope, California. Sarah was the 2017 Rotary Club of Penn Valley Teacher of the Year, and she is the recipient of the Girl Scout Gold Award, which is the highest and most prestigious award in Girl Scouting. Ms. Sparhawk has earned an Associate of Science Arts degree from Sierra College, a bachelor's degree in art from Sacramento State University, and a master's degree in educational leadership from American College of Education. Sarah Sparhawk. Mark Walling. Mr. Walling will become the new principal of our Lake schools. Mark is the product of Douglas County and a graduate of Douglas High School. Mark started his educational career and has spent the past 13 years at Douglas High School. 9 of those years were spent as a math teacher, and for the past 4 years, he has served as the Dean Athletic Director. In his role as Dean AD, Mark has been afforded and excelled with the opportunity to develop skills as a building leader. During his time at Douglas High School, Mark also served as a varsity baseball coach and coach within the football and cross-country programs. Mr. Walling is a graduate of University of Nevada, Reno, and has earned a master's degree in math education from Western Governors University and another master's degree in educational leadership from American College of Education. Mark Walling. And Kelly Winter. Ms. Winter has been hired to serve as the assistant principal at our Lake Schools and Minden Elementary School. Kelly has taught math at Douglas High School for the past 19 years, and she was honored as the DCSD Distinguished Secondary Educator of the Year in 2020. She is, during her time, she's also a graduate of Douglas High School. During her time at Douglas High, Ms. Winter has served as the math department chair. She has been a member of the EPIC Cohort 1. She has served on the site leadership team, and she has served as a professional learning community facilitator. Kelly has also coached track and field and cheerleading while at DHS. As for her educational background, Kelly is a graduate of Douglas High School. I had it in here somewhere. She earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Northern Colorado, and she earned a master's degree in math education from Western Governors University, and another master's degree in educational leadership from American College of Education. Kelly Winter. I'm extremely excited about the crew we're bringing aboard. Thank you all for being here tonight.
list, huh?
We've been doing a little interviewing.
A little bit. All right. Next. So next on our list is the Nevada Association of School Boards report, and that would be me, also known as NASB. I just want to remind everybody, as I did last meeting, that we have our state conference, which includes some training, November 12th and 13th. We're lucky because it's in the north. It's at Harvey's at Lake Tahoe, followed by a banquet honoring all NASB award winners. Okay? And I think that's all I have to say about that. Next would be board reports. And Heather, do you mind if I start down that end, or you ready, or?
Yeah, let's see, I stopped in at the leadership training that they had over the summer, and that was neat to see all of the new people that were just put in positions, were all there and getting trained and ready. And I think that's all that I did with my conference.
Thank you. I know you've been traveling a little bit.
Nothing to report.
All right. Mr. Magnata, do you have anything to report, board reports? Okay, thank you, sir.
No.
Nothing?
Nothing here.
Okay. Okay. The only thing I have to report then is I also attended the forum where we had all our leadership and we got to meet with all the new leaders and talked about, we'll be hearing a lot about our epic promise. I also attended most of the day at the special education training, now called DCSD Inclusive Education. They changed the name. And the last thing I was able to do is I went over to Scarcelli the first day of school and kind of walked around. I went over to the buses when the buses came in and just wanted to see how the kids were doing, and they did a great job. And then I walked to school, the administrators walked to schools, I'll talk about that, but happened to be at Scarcelli and we walked through and talked to some teachers and some kids, and gosh, the excitement was so fun to see the kids there. They were so happy to be in school. So, and that's it. Okay, we'll move on to correspondence. Does anyone on the board have anything to report for correspondence that they want to report? No?
I was just told we did just get an email sent from a parent
Right.
Right.
that I haven't seen that is.
I received a couple of emails, both pro and con, on mask issues.
Anybody else for correspondence? Okay.
I don't usually report, but I too have received several emails over the last week on both sides of the issue regarding base coverings.
I could also say the same for myself. I received from both sides as well. All right, we're going to move on to something that's new called Good News, but it's each month I'll share some good news that's out there, recognizing employee students. We kind of did that with our new administrators. And so it'll officially begin, and there'll be articles in the paper starting in September. So if you do get the paper, or you can go online, please look for that. Okay. And then next is the superintendent report. Mr. Lewis.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to construction just because Mr. Demas has another appointment afterwards. So just we have a lot going on across the district regarding construction and maintenance projects, obviously, as we always do in the summer months. The roof warranty work valued at $2.2 million has started at Jacks Valley Elementary and is estimated to take about 2 weeks. Following the completion at Jacks Valley, they will move on to C.C. Manili Elementary School, and then they will start at Douglas High School, the single-ply new roof on September 13th. And so the total value of all 3 projects is the $2.2 million. And that's all covered under warranty through Garland Roofing. The carpet replacement at Minden, although delayed due to an accident with the truck that was transporting the carpet had a rollover accident. Fortunately, we were able to complete that. They will need to come back in. The pattern of the carpet that Mr. Stoll had selected, they didn't have all of it, so they can come back in. It squares and can easily replace that when that product comes in. The carpet project at Powell Middle School, the cafetorium and all the hallways has also been completed. The BMP project at the lake is complete with the final job walk tomorrow. At Zephyr Cove Elementary School, the fencing project is about 85% completed. New gutters, snow fences, and downspouts have been added. The new playground funded by the PTO will be complete by opening day. And DCSD has replaced the pavement in the back of the school that was brought to your attention a couple months ago. The HVAC project at CC Manili was completed in time for opening day. Fire alarm upgrades at Powell, Scarcelli, and Zephyr Cove are now upgraded with new panels, signage, and alarms throughout the schools. The window film project is once again moving forward and is estimated to be about 35% completed. We ran into a delay there with product availability that I reported last month. Our school nutrition program applied and was granted money. So DCSD has installed a new dishwasher at CC Manili and Jacks Valley, and then we'll be putting additional steam tables throughout a variety of schools. The Douglas High School painting project is complete. All the redwood and trim was stained, and the 200 building, 400 building, and media center were all painted. The pavement projects are all complete. Minden Elementary, Pinion Hills Elementary were chip sealed in parking lots and playgrounds, and DHS has new pavement installed by the Nevada lawn area. The two gentlemen, I'd like them to stand up, Phil Demas and Scott McCullough, please stand up. These gentlemen deserve our heartfelt appreciation, and also Bill Blumenthal, who is, you guys don't have to shake hands with each other, but you can. But Bill Blumenthal as well, who's not here tonight, for all the work that's been completed on our DCSD facilities and their outstanding efforts in overseeing these projects. And this by far, what we've got accomplished this summer and what we continue to do is, we haven't had that much in my time, and I really appreciate your efforts and the work of our facilities. So thank you both.
Finished?
No.
Sorry.
I don't have a voice, you'll be lucky at the end of the night. School reopening, as you know, our Valley Schools opened the doors yesterday to in-person learning, and I'm proud of the efforts and organization of our staff to ensure the opening of the 2021-22 school year went smoothly. My staff and I were able to visit all 10 of our Valley schools, and we are extremely pleased with what we observed at those sites. Just as a reminder, our first day at our lake schools will be Monday, August 23rd. As for enrollment, we staffed DCSD schools on a projected enrollment of 5,288. As of yesterday, our enrollment sits at 5,309, which is about 21 over our projections. In comparison to last year, our new request for homeschooling is significantly down, but that could be a little misleading because you only have to sign up once. And as I reported last year, we had over 200. And so we still have pretty significant numbers in our homeschooling program. Right now, we're still in the process of comparing our school enrollments with our homeschool roster to get a definitive number on that. So we have to go through and check, and if anyone came back from homeschooling, we have to do the cross-reference. So we'll be doing that. I've asked Human Resources Director Joe Gertner and our Chief Nurse Jen Tyndall. I've tasked them with developing our DCSD's COVID-19 testing program, which is required by Directive 048. All testing will be funded by the state through the Federal American Rescue Plan funding. Directive 048 requires testing of unvaccinated students and staff in the following situations. Football, basketball, and wrestling athletes on a weekly basis, as those sports are designated as close contact activities by the NIAA. As you remember, we didn't end up having basketball and wrestling last year, so the only sport we had in that category was football. And this would be the same as we did in the spring of 2020, I guess. No, 21. Same year. So we tested them on a weekly basis using the Binax Now test. All students and staff who participate in a school-sponsored activity that travels outside Douglas County, there's been some confusion in the community. All we control is school-sponsored events. This doesn't necessarily pertain to Pop Warner. It's just school-sponsored activities that travel outside Douglas County are required to also participate in testing. And as I indicated, DCSD is required to have a testing program available to all students and staff, which we will provide. We are working on details of how students and staff can sign up for testing, but testing outside of those two activity areas is completely optional. There's nothing mandatory about that part. As we did last year, DCSD will be using the Binax Now rapid antigen test. We will be contracting with an outside company, Optimus Medicine, to conduct the testing at Douglas High School, CVMS, and Powell Middle Schools, and those students that participate in activities from Aspire Academy High School in Douglas, Nevada online, due to the large volume of tests that we will need to conduct. We will utilize district staff to test at our lake schools, and for those students and staff who request testing at the elementary schools, again, we'll use our own staff for that. Students and staff will be required to show a vaccination card to be exempt from the testing for close contact sports and activities that will travel outside Douglas County. Vaccinations, I along with 3 other Nevada school superintendents met with the Department of Education last Saturday to begin discussions regarding how we might incentivize vaccinations, primarily for adults. At this point, we're just focusing on incentives for staff. And we might be looking at something along the lines that if a certain percentage of staff is vaccinated, they wouldn't have to wear their masks. We're just kind of starting those discussions. And I would tell you that I think a pretty high percentage of our Douglas County School District staff is vaccinated based on the data that we had in the spring, but we don't know the who, and we don't know at this point an exact percentage. Pandemic meetings will resume our weekly school district pandemic meetings this Friday. These meetings have been established to allow Douglas to school district leadership from across the Quad County region. So a reminder, the Quad County includes Douglas County, Carson City, Story County, and Lyon County. And so we meet every Friday at 3 with the staff of Carson City Health and Human Services. And then obviously we've found these very beneficial to be able to find out what's going on, best practices in other school districts, and just to be able to share information with them. And so often our Dr. Holman is our local public health official. He is in attendance often at those meetings as well as our chief nurse, Jen Tyndall. COVID-19 website, we are working to create a COVID-19 specific website that will be a one-stop shop for information related to COVID. While I know everyone loves my nightly phone calls, I'm trying to spare them a little bit this year. And so sending out, doing the dashboard and so that people can more real-time check on it. And then we would do, obviously, if we get into any situations where we're seeing any kind of cluster in school, we'd obviously increase our communication along those lines moving forward. So that would have information as well on upcoming vaccination opportunities, testing information. As we get the program developed, we'll obviously put all that information out to our community so that they are aware of that. So that's COVID and school reopening. And then finally, as you know, I established a goal last year during the 2020-21 school year to reintroduce instructional walks within DCSD. I believe it's important to walk classrooms together to improve our instructional practice and provide meaningful feedback to our teachers. For those of you that are not familiar with the concept of instructional walks, a team of 2 to 3 administrators, trainers, or aspiring administrators observe a classroom for 20 minutes, observing for specific instructional strategies. We then leave the classroom and debrief to ensure inter-rater reliability amongst us. So what we're trying to do is when we go into the classroom, if Doug, Tony, and I go into the classroom, that what I see, Doug thinks he sees and Tony thinks he sees, and we don't come out and see 3 completely different things in the classroom. So again, we're trying for that evaluation purpose. When an administrator goes in their classroom, it's consistent in what we're looking for and how we rate teachers when we do that on the evaluation process. And so that's kind of the intent behind the instructional walks. While it's extremely important to see what is happening within our DCSD classrooms, it is also important, again, I talked about inter-rater reliability. This is a non-evaluatory thing for teachers. And we had something similar years back. And one of the downfalls of that is the teachers never got feedback. They came in, they did all the observations, and then they just kind of gave here's the school as a whole, and no one ever knew what their data was. And inevitably you'd have one person disengaged and everybody be wondering, who was it? Was it me? And so we're going to really, really work on being more communicative, giving specific feedback. When we walk out of a classroom, we're able to instantly give them feedback about what we saw, and again, some positive feedback from what we saw in the classroom as well. So that piece is definitely will be different, and I think teachers will appreciate that greatly. So and then the leadership forum, Linda and Heather had mentioned this. We held our annual leadership forum on July 26th through 28th at the warehouse in downtown Gardnerville. The warehouse is owned by Meredith Fisher with Eddy Street Vintage Market. It was an amazing location. She's just opened the warehouse up, and it was a very nice location in downtown Gardnerville to support our community as well. Our theme this year was "If you build it, they will learn," which is a spin-off, obviously, of the movie Field of Dreams. We built our baseball theme throughout the 2.5 days in each of You have been given a baseball jersey seat cushion. Your chairs are a little bit more comfy than chairs that we sat in, so that's why we went with the cushion. And that was our promotional giveaway for game one. We referred to every day as a game. We balanced a lot of work with a little fun, and we even took an activity break to play a short game of wiffle ball at Heritage Park. I didn't realize Mr. Gardner was evaluating everyone's baseball skills while we were playing. So he knows who to not pick next time. That'd probably be one of them. Tuesday night, we traveled to Reno, enjoyed time to relax at the Reno Aces baseball game. Feedback has been very positive, and our leadership team was appreciative that we remained focused on epic learning and did not add a bunch of new stuff to the plate. One of the highlights of our leadership team is what we call peer-to-peer training, where our administrators provide 20 to 30-minute trainings to their colleagues. Kate Balagad trained staff on building connections with students, did an incredible job of starting our forum out. Pam Gilmartin trained on the concept of conducting 10 by 10-minute walkthroughs, and Nancy White conducted the training on 18 themes a teacher wants their administrator to know. So it was a good 2.5 days of time well spent. And then just finally, we'll be holding our first town hall meeting, which will be held in person on September 16th at our lake schools. I'll be holding a town hall meeting in person here in the Valley. The first one will be on October 13th, and then we'll hold 2 virtual town hall meetings on January 13th and March 29th. And I'll obviously communicate those out as we get closer. So that is my update for you.
Thank you.
Questions?
We have 2 questions.
Serena?
First question is, the company that is doing the warranty work on the roof, do you know if they're eating that work or if they have insurance that's covering them? You know?
believe they're taking care of it through their company, they're $1 billion company.
Okay, so I think they are eating it. I think they realize it was, I mean, as I've told you, we've spent years trying to get the roofs fixed, and they just come up and patchwork them, and then same leak or a different leak, and so they're finally doing what's right, and
Good.
so.
And
Just like Tony, he's got one more.
and then, as far as the testing goes for activities, this is probably a question more for our council, but there's been a common concern that asking about vaccination status is a HIPAA violation. And I'm wondering if the council can talk to that a little bit.
That is not a HIPAA violation. HIPAA only applies to covered entities under the law, and school districts are not covered entities.
What's an example of a covered entity?
Hospital,
Self-care provider.
hospital, anybody providing health care.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
Trustee McNaughton?
I cannot hear anybody. I read lips. I've been trained to read lips. I'm legally deaf. So the mask really affects me and I can't hear. So please speak loud and distinctly. I'd sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure, we will try hard.
I will use my gym voice, Tony.
Thank
I
you.
haven't lost it.
All righty. Okay, we'll move on to item
Another
number.
question.
Oh, sorry, Doug.
Keith, when you talked about the vaccine testings or the testings for COVID at the Lake School, and you said the staff, how exactly does that work?
So Doug, last year, Bill Bryant, Tony Reck, who is the nurse at the Lake Schools, and Tia were all trained. They're all certified trainers, and just due to the low numbers that we have across the sports, we can manage that just in-house. It'll help us with just the coordination of a company coming in and trying to get them up to the lake and at all the schools. We
Is
think
this the
that'll-
nose swab?
Yeah, so it's the exact same test. The company that comes in will be the Binax now. It'll be the exact same
And
test.
how long before, or how long does it take to get the test result?
About 15 minutes, so it's quick. Yep. So
Anyone else?
they stay there until we get the result, and then obviously if it was a positive, then we obviously call them and remove them.
Positives, false negatives on this.
All right, let's move on to the next item. Item number 9, Jacks Valley Elementary HVAC engineering design work. We're gonna have Scott come on up. So I don't know if you're coming with him or not, but you're welcome. You're welcome to. We have Scott McCullough.
Thank you, President Gilkerson. Scott McCullough, Douglas County, for the record. 2 years ago, when we had Jacks Valley, the improvement project, we only had funding to complete a portion of the HVAC system remodel. This project, next summer, will complete the HVAC remodel of the school. So the first step, the first step of the project is to contract with the engineer. CR Engineering did the work previously. This is the completion of their work for the project. $55,000 is the fee, and we recommend approval to move forward with the project.
All right. Any questions from the board? No? Okay, can I make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we bid for the mechanical engineer design work for the Jacks Valley Elementary School HVAC project to CR Engineering in the amount of $55,000 as recommended by Director of Facilities Phil Demas and Project Manager Scott McCullough.
Okay, motion made.
Second.
Trustee Kangas seconded. Is there any public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Scott. Next, we have Scott McCullough for item number 10. It's the Douglas High School Culinary Room Improvement Project Contract. And we'll go ahead and have you talk about that.
Great, thank you, President Bill. And again, Scott McCullough, Douglas County, for the record. The district is improving the existing culinary classroom with a freezer and cooler, both exterior and interior improvements. The work was bid out. 4 bids were received. We had quite the range of bids. The low bid was $175 to Central Sierra Construction, who has done numerous projects, and have been in the Carson Valley for over 25 years. They're a really good contractor, and they had a really great price. We were $5,000 under project budget at $180. So we recommend approval and available for any questions.
Any questions from the board? Trustee Lehman?
You said there was a huge range on this one. Normally we don't see that. Was that the other one was twice the price?
Correct.
Any idea what's going on there?
I think it's market conditions where a contractor thinks he can, you're not sure what the bidding climate is.
We got plenty of work. They've been high and
Right.
they're not.
It's worth the risk.
Yeah.
The cost of bidding on this type of project is minimal.
And when we talked about this a couple of meetings ago, we talked about getting some amount of stuff with the cap done, getting as much done.
Correct.
You got pretty much the whole wish list done for
Correct.
under.
With $5,000 for contingency.
Well done. Thank you.
No. Anyone else have a comment on the board?
No.
No. Seeing none, bring it to a motion.
I'd move that the board award the bid for Douglas High School Culinary Room Improvement Project to Central Systems Construction in the amount of $175,420 as recommended by Director of Facilities Phil Demas and Project Manager Scott McCullough.
Okay. Heather seconds it. Okay. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, John, I'm not looking over you. There is none. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. I realize that. Seeing none, let's bring it to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, next, we have item number 11. It's the Culture and Climate Survey presentation. And I believe we have a couple of young ladies with us, Christy McGill and Amber Reed. Is that right, Amber? All right, okay. And you're from?
The Office of Safe and Respectful Learning Environment.
Office
Sorry,
of
because I
Safe
answered the question for you.
and Respectful Learning. Welcome.
That's through the Department of Ed.
It's through the
The
department.
Nevada Department of Ed is who Christy and Amber work for.
Yep, I'm just going to use my big voice as well.
Thank you.
So I'm going to introduce my colleague Amber Reed, but first of all, I wanted to thank you all for inviting us down. We're always here to partner. And really what we wanted to talk to you about tonight was the climate survey and what other districts use it for, and also give a little overview about your data. Know that this is a collaborative project of school improvement between our office, NDE, and you all as well. So I'm going to have Amber come on up. She's going to give you the presentation. If throughout the presentation we're pretty informal, feel free to interrupt Amber if you have questions, and we'll try to answer them as much as can. If you have a question that we can't answer, we'll get you the answer and come on back.
Thanks, Christy.
You can stay here too.
Oh, thanks. Good afternoon. My name is Amber Reed, and I'm with the Nevada Department of Education's Office for a Safe and Respectful Learning Environment. And as Christy said, we're very thrilled to be here. Thank you for the invitation to come and share our work on the school climate survey and what we believe it does for kids and families and educators across the state. I'm going to see if my magic does work. I have the magic remote. So I'll change the slide. We're going to go through quickly the history and evolution of the school climate survey, talk about why school climate is an important metric in an educational environment. We're going to look at some of the statutory requirements in Nevada. We're going to honor the work that Douglas County School District has done to lead the way on implementing multi-tiered systems of support. And then we're going to look at your data for the most recent school climate survey, which was in the spring of 2021. So back in the 2015 legislative session here in Nevada, Senate Bill 515 created the Social Workers in Schools State Block Grant, which requires the Department of Education to place social workers or other mental health workers in schools across the state, in schools with identified needs. The Nevada School Climate Social Emotional Learning Survey was developed to fill that requirement to help us identify which schools were in need. And along with the intent and the alignment of the work that was done by Senate Bill 504 during that same session on establishing safe and respectful learning environments. And actually, that Senate Bill 504 did establish our office, the office that we work for in the Department of Education, which is the Office for a Safe and Respectful Learning Environment. At that time, I was working in Washoe County School District as a school social worker. And I'll just reference you to those two sections in NRS Chapter 388, 132 and 1321, which reference the Legislative Declaration on Safe and Respectful Learning Environments. The survey has gone through some evolution in the last 6 years or so since we started working on the survey. We moved the original ask from our district and school partners. Originally, the survey was administered in the spring, and as any of you who worked in school settings or had kids in school settings recognize, spring is testing season. And oftentimes, our computer labs and those things that are needed to administer those tests are valuable real estate and hard to get into for administering the survey. And we also wanted to honor sort of the work and best practices nationally in the literature on school climate survey work by moving to a fall administration. So that was one of the first evolutions that we saw. During the interim between 2017 and 2019, the Legislative Committee on Education, which is the committee that meets between legislative sessions, it's comprised of members from both the Senate and the Assembly and representatives from both the majority party as well as the minority party at that time. That committee at the time was split 50-50 Republicans and Democrats. That group directed the Department of Education to include an additional gender option on the school climate survey, which was added and through some work after we did some development to develop that item to the spring 2019 administration of the school climate survey that is only given to students in grades 9 through 12. During that 2019 legislative session, you may remember the School Safety Omnibus Bill, which was Senate Bill 89, that added the requirement to include measures of school climate in the annual school plan to improve the achievement of pupils. Let me say that one more time. The annual plan to improve the achievement of pupils, sometimes called the school improvement plan or the school performance plan, colloquially. We also developed recently in the spring a pilot staff component to that school climate survey, and which was administered last spring as a pilot, and that will be administered this fall along with the regular student school climate survey and offered to our district partners. So we're going to go through these really quickly. I'll just note that we have a host of research across the literature that tells us that school climate is an important thing to consider in our schools. And generally, when we talk about measuring school climate, we're looking at students' perceptions
of their school environment, their relationships with their colleagues and their peers, as well as their relationships with their teachers and educators. We know that school climate improves academic outcomes, not only for the students, but also for our educators. An improved school climate, as we all know, happier workplaces make for happier employees. And so an improved school climate also decreases the stress and the burdens on our educators. We know that an improved school climate impacts school safety, and that when we have a positive school climate, we have a decrease in negative or aggressive behaviors. School climate is a frequent component of violence prevention efforts, and also part of systems development. And this is where we want to talk to you and honor you for the work that you've done here in this school district regarding multi-tiered systems of support. When we implement positive changes to school climate across a tiered model and a systematic approach, we have higher outcomes and better outcomes. NRS 385A650 is the statutory requirement for that annual plan to improve the achievement of pupils. Look, I got it right that time, the first try. In NRS 385A650 is where you'll find that requirement to include school climate in those school improvement or school performance plans. And that section of statute also defines school climate. Everything in italics there on your PowerPoint or your handout is a direct quote from the statute. So you can see that the definition of school climate in Nevada law includes relationships between pupils, parents and legal guardians of pupils and educational personnel, culture and linguistic competence, emotional safety and physical safety, as well as social, emotional, and academic development, which is sometimes referred to as social emotional learning. I'll also point out that NRS 385A650 pertains to both pupils and educators, which is one of the reasons that we've been trying so hard to find the funding to develop that staff pilot survey that we were able to administer last fall. Multi-tiered systems of support is also a requirement in NRS Chapter 388. And if you look at Section 885, you will see what the components of an MTSS system includes. This past session in 2021, Assembly Bill 194 added a requirement to that annual plan to improve the achievement of pupils. Look at that, I'm 2 for 2 so far. Don't call it a streak. Must also be developed in accordance with the provisions of that section, which refers to multi-tiered system of supports. MTSS came originally from the field of public health. For those of you that are educators, you may recognize it most cleanly in response to intervention or positive behavior interventions and supports. When we include those two approaches with mental health supports, we often talk about what's called the integrated systems framework. And I can tell you that due to some of our partnerships with Douglas County School District over the years on our federal grants, your teams here and your educators here, especially in your schools, are leading the edge on that work statewide. You were early adopters and you were early advocates from the very beginning. And I think that some of the responses and the data that we're going to look at in a minute for your school climate reflects that.
What that really means is that because you guys implemented that, you had opportunities to intervene early instead of waiting for kids to get into trouble or waiting for them to continue to fail. So really appreciate that really innovation of early intervention.
Thank you. So why do we focus on an MTSS system? Well, it improves integration across multiple initiatives. It, number one, really helps you conserve resources. When you implement anything through an MTSS framework, it will be more efficient and more effective. It also decreases the burden on our educators for initiative fatigue, and then it increases academic outcomes and enhances sustainability, for example. These are the 7 core components of MTSS here in Nevada. We're going to talk about those 4 in green very quickly as we look at the school climate data, and most especially data-based decision-making. And you guys already know how data-based decision-making works because you've been doing it here for a very long time. But essentially, when we look at data, it helps us define our problems more clearly and more precisely so that our solutions can also be more effective at addressing the underlying and core issues that we're facing. I'll keep going. Oh, apologies. One of my favorite things about database decision-making is that it helps us place the problem in the context or the environment rather than on the student, right? So oftentimes we like to blame a student for an issue, and this, what it allows us, when we look at the data, we can really understand where's the true nature of the problem. Simply placing blame on a student doesn't help us come to what will be an effective solution. So when we can use data, we can find out exactly where the problem is so that we're more likely to be effective when we implement a solution. Now, the school climate survey that the state supports is called the Nevada School Climate Social Emotional Learning Survey, or NVSC-SEL. There are 48 items total with a few additional demographic questions. It is validated for grades 5 through 12. It's administered annually in the fall. And then we always offer an optional spring survey administration to our schools that would like to do so. We've had some of Douglas County School District's schools opt into that. Oftentimes, it's nice to see some progress over a school year to see if any of the things that you implemented have been having the impacts that you hope that they have been. The survey is offered in both English and Spanish. None of the questions on the survey are required. All of the questions on the survey are entirely optional, including all demographic questions. The administration manual, all the user IDs, the technical support for administering the survey, all of the reports that we produce and provide to your district, the online results and the resources are all, bless you, all provided to each of our LEAs at no cost to you. There are 4 school climate constructs bundled around engagement and safety. So safety is obviously broken between physical safety and emotional safety. Engagement is defined between cultural and linguistic competence and relationships. And then the final measure on the school climate survey is social and emotional competency. That SEL competency is the students' perceptions of their own skills or competencies, while the school climate constructs are their perceptions of their school building. The reports, the results on the school climate survey for the social emotional competency item are percent affirmative, meaning what percent of students either strongly agreed, disagreed, or strongly disagreed across that 4-point Likert scale. The school climate construct scores are an index score between 100 to 500. And because the state school climate survey is a subset of the US Department of Education school climate survey, we're able to use the national benchmarks that the US Department of Education released in spring of 2018. And so I've got those categories there. Anything below roughly 300 or so would be considered least favorable. Anything between 300 and 400 is in the favorable category. Anything from 400 and above means you're doing great and you're in the most favorable category. And those are performance benchmarks. All 15 of our rural and frontier school districts participate in the Student School Climate Survey, and all of our schools that are part of the state-sponsored public charter school authority. And that's because Washoe and Clark County school districts have been funding and administering their own school climate survey for many years. And so in the spring of 2018, while we were adapting to be able to use the national benchmarks, we also paid to have a common person equating study completed, which allows us to take the data from the Washoe and the Clark surveys and translate it so that it is reportable in the same format that the state school climate survey is, and which allows us to use the national benchmarks. So as of 2018, we could finally have a true statewide average that included the data from Washoe and Clark County school districts. And we're also now better able to compare across schools, across districts, and across the state. There are some live links here for all of the resources you could possibly ever want on the school climate survey. I'm very proud of the online results and resources work that we've done, because that came directly as a result of working with our school principals and school leaders. As we went around the state to work with them on their school climate surveys, and they gave us some really great feedback. In Lyon County School District, Principal Peters said, "This is all well and good, having these results, but I don't know how I compare to other schools that are like me with a smaller population in a smaller community, when the statewide average is going to include schools from Clark County School District that are pushing 4,000, 4,500 kids." We said, you know what, that's a really good suggestion. And so we developed the peer matching tool, and that peer matching tool takes data from the Nevada report card, including assessment data, graduation rate data, and also community data from the National Center on Education Statistics, such as the size of your community or the locale code. So that when you use that peer matching tool and it's fully customizable, you can see how your school or your community compares to others. You can also use that tool to see how your incoming classes may be, that may be joining you. So if you're Douglas County High School and you want to look at Powell Middle School and say, what do our eighth graders, our incoming eighth graders look like? Where are some areas that we might want to build in some supports as they get welcomed into our building? The interactive data tool is also super cool. I am not a tech person or a coder. So as far as I'm concerned, it's magic that they can make these really cool data visualization tools. I've always joked it's from Harry Potter's Standard Book of Spells 1, probably, the way that they form these online resources. But that's there as well for you. And then also those PDF reports, which are provided annually in both English and Spanish. And those are also ADA compliant. All of the resources that we provide and post publicly are compliant with Section 504 of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And then finally, the participation rates for each school are part of the school rating report that's produced and posted annually on Nevada report card. Now, the good stuff. This is what you've been waiting for, your results from spring 2021. And I just want to draw your attention to the y-axis, those numbers on the left-hand side of your screen that run from 300 at the bottom to 400. That's that favorable national benchmark. And the blue line across the bottom, I'm going to reinforce and point you to look at 300 because most of your scores are above 300. There's one that is not. And so I'll draw your attention to that as we get there. You can see for cultural and linguistic competence in relationships under that engagement category that students in Douglas County School District reported slightly more favorable perceptions of the cultural and linguistic competence than the relationships component. I'll also add that on both the PDF reports and the interactive data tool, you can see every single question that students are given in terms of the climate measures. And then on the administration website, you can see the entire survey itself, as well as the administration manual. As you know, tests and surveys come with a script. And so the script that the teacher would read or the counselor, whoever's administering the survey. The difference between emotional safety and physical safety is quite stark. And I will let you know, this is not unusual to Douglas County School District. In fact, this is what we see across the state, that consistently we have, on average, statewide, between 25 to 35 index points lower on emotional safety than we do physical safety. So don't get too fired up about that. I will also note, as Christy noted earlier, that a lot of your work on early intervention and prevention has led to a very high score on physical safety for Douglas County at 395. Culture and linguistic competency across the major race and ethnicity categories you can see here. And because that x-axis on the right side between 300 and 400, that's going to stay consistent and the size is consistent. So as I click through these slides, you can actually pay attention to the height of those columns and get a good idea of how they compare to each other. So you can see consistently our Black and African American students and our students of 2 or more races across the state tend to be the lowest, whether you're in Douglas County, Clark County, Lyon County, Washoe County. For relationships, you can see that perhaps your Pacific Islander students in Douglas County School District reported the lowest perceptions of relationships in their schools. Emotional safety, did you see how those columns went way, way down? That's what we would expect, right? Looking at those overall levels. Again, our Black, African American, 2 or more races, and Pacific Islander students are on the lowest. And then we go back to physical safety, where this is the graph on your left-hand side. You see that it goes all the way up to 420 because you've got 2 groups that are into the most favorable category, and that is unique. That is not common in the state for our schools to have such high numbers, high values for physical safety. So that's kudos to you and your district for the good work that you've been doing. And I'll just point out one more time as I go back to emotional safety, how that drops so significantly from emotional safety to physical safety.
And just a really quick note too, you guys have really the bars are close to all being in a line, which is what we want to see. probably more so than some of the other districts. So again, some good news there.
Yeah, great point, Christy. So if we look back at some of the other metrics, you can see it's a little more up and down. And as we look here, we're going to have more of a solid average across groups, and that's a good sign. We also look at school climate constructs by sex, and so you can see the blue is for cultural and linguistic competence, the darker color is male, the lighter color is female students. Relationships consistently, our male students report across the state again higher perceptions of their school's climate across all 4 school climate constructs. That is not uncommon. Occasionally, we will have young men report lower perceptions of physical safety in their school building than the female students. But in the case of your district, that is not the case. So this is fairly consistent. And then going to that additional gender option that I mentioned earlier, you can see here that your students that identify male report higher perceptions of the school climate constructs across all 4 again. Then those students that identify female, and those students that identify neither male nor female have the lowest perceptions among these groups. And again, on the next slide, and this is the slide where you can see where you've got some values that drop below that 300 level line. Again, for emotional safety, like I said, across the state, that's our lowest score. No matter where you are, you're going to have students that report lower numbers on emotional safety right now than any of the other 4 constructs. I will also note that for physical safety, you have a much smaller, almost non-existent gap there, right? So if you're looking at those students that identify male versus those that identify female versus those that identify neither male nor female, it's relatively consistent compared to the other constructs. Finally, I've provided here for you all of the scores for each of your schools that participate in our survey across each of those constructs again, just so that you have those. The early PDF reports and early results were provided to your school district when you finished the survey this last spring in 2021. As soon as we have completed the equating process for Washoe and Clark County school districts, we'll be able to update the statewide average for the spring 2021 survey, and then update all of those online resources. It's relatively quick. Again, I think it's just a quick spell, and they update everything on the resources on the website so that it's current for the spring 2021 survey results. And with that, we'll be happy to take any questions.
Is this data shared with anybody or sold to any companies?
No, the data is not sold at all.
Okay, so it's our students are protected, correct?
Absolutely, yes. And I think I'll just add, Trustee Magnata, that one of the benefits of having an external source administer your survey is that the way that the user IDs are provided to students are completely randomized and anonymized. So there's no way even that your own school would be able to go back and get the data on their own students, as opposed to the surveys that are done in Washoe and Clark County. When the students sign into those surveys, they use their student ID. And so there's a not as clean of a cut in the confidentiality of that data.
What's the difference between SEL, social emotional learning, and critical race theory, CRT?
So social emotional learning is a movement, a field in education that looks at the social emotional competencies and needs across students and adults. It's well founded in the literature and the history. It focuses on 5 main competencies: self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, relationships, things that they have found throughout decades that when students, there's quite a bit of research and analyses that say that when students have some type of support in these skills, their academics improve and their school climate improves. If you look at the results on the school climate survey, you can use any one of those links. You can see exactly the questions that our survey asks for social emotional competence. Again, that's at the level of the student. They're not rating their friends or their teachers, they're just rating themselves. Critical race theory, as I understand it, is a legal theory that has been around for some time that supports legal advocates and attorneys to look at legal statutes, policies, processes to examine if any of the policies and the language as it has been implemented, or those procedures and protocols, could be founded in some racism. There's no link between SEL and critical race theory in the literature or in practice.
And really, social emotional learning is explicitly teaching the skills around responsible decision-making, relationship skills, not just assuming that students and staff have these skills. So it's really a movement toward intentionally teaching these skills, because all of our industries have reported back to NDE that these soft skills, sometimes as they're called, are what is needed for the 21st century. And so why we're putting a real emphasis on that social emotional learning, so that kids graduate, they're problem solvers, they're independent thinkers, all those kinds of things that we all want in our adults.
And that make them good employees.
Yeah.
Who was the developer of these programs? Where did they originate?
Which
SEL and CRT.
I don't know about CRT at all. I'm not a lawyer or a legal scholar. Social emotional learning really came out of the leadership. The Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, CASEL, tends to be the leader in SEL work, but the Aspen Institute has quite a bit on it. Many universities in their education departments have SEL professors and programs. It's pretty common. It's been a common component of education, like I said, for at least the last couple of decades. I wouldn't know that I could put a finger on where it started and who started it. It's kind of like asking who started the work on school climate, right? And who decided and
It
figured out
was
that it was a
a
good thing.
Marxist document that was developed, and that's where it started. It's communism. And you can look it up anywhere. Go to social emotional learning, look it up, and go to the Epoch Times and read those articles. There's tons of information on it, on how it originated, how it was started, and what type of doctrine it is.
Trustee Lehman.
Got a few questions. I'm not sure if they're for you. I'll just ask them. You said that none of the questions are required.
That's correct.
So we could, as a board or an administration, we could go through and line item out any questions we want.
There could potentially be a cost for that. When we build the survey platform, we don't make any edits or enhancements to that because it's standardized across the state. The legislature, when they directed us in 2018 to add that additional gender option, they also directed us to what ultimately led to that equating study, to produce results that will allow us to compare the results across schools and districts statewide. So I'm not sure, in theory, yes, you could make the edits that you wish to. I'm not sure if there would be a cost on the part of that. Something I'd have to check with our vendor.
So when you meet, when you say, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say that the students themselves can choose not to answer any of the questions. It's not, there's no consequences to not answering the questions. So
We
if
do
they're
have students too that enter the survey and just don't complete it.
Great.
Okay. What is our process in the district? Is this, can parents opt out? If so, what's the process?
So that's for me. And I think that's, as there was controversy in the spring on this, that's the one thing.
We had a question again.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tony.
Louder.
I said, what is the process of providing this test? Is it an opt-in test for parents, or is it just given to everybody? Can they opt out? I'm just asking that part.
So yes, they can opt out of the test. And I think that's the one thing we definitely learned in the spring the hard way. But moving forward, I think all of our surveys should be posted online prior, so parents can review what those questions are that are going to be asked. They can have those discussions with their children prior to the administration, and then there is an opportunity to opt out. So I think that's, again, we've learned that lesson, that number one, we need to make sure we're communicating it when the administration is going to be, and then also making sure that we're sharing what the questions are going to be that kids are going to be asked.
If
Does that answer your
I may
question?
just add briefly, the department doesn't get involved in those parent consent questions, right? That's a local decision, but we do have built into the beginning of the survey an assent page. And that is part of the administration manual and all the resources that you
What
can see
page?
online. Assent, giving permission that I agree that I'm going to take the survey, and that the data is going to be used the way that it's going to be used. But it explains all of the protections on confidentiality, all of the things that we've built in. Like I said, you know, in terms of like, there's no way that even if Mr. Lewis was a principal at his school and he wanted his school's survey results, there's no way that you could connect the user IDs because we don't even track that. When we provide the user IDs, they're anonymized and randomized by school level. And so it's impossible to track that back to the level of the student.
So one final. Is it legal? Is it okay if we made this strictly an opt-in?
That would be a district level decision. Like I said, the
It is a
department
district level decision, it's not state.
to opt in. The local control indicates your parent consent,
Okay, thank you.
active or passive. That's federal.
Okay. Trustee Kangas? I'm sorry, you finished? Okay. Trustee Kangas?
So I've heard the word active out. Is that what we were talking about when we were talking about opting out of the, where is it, parental consent?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I'd like to know if this survey, by the sounds of it, is not a state requirement. Is that correct?
Originally, the survey was a requirement because of the way that it was rolled out. As I mentioned, it was part of that social workers in school state block grant, where we had, in order for schools or districts to be eligible for that funding, we had to have some data that allowed us to identify needs. And that data source was that we were directed to develop by the legislature in 2015, 17, and 19 to include that school climate data. The social workers in school state block grant and all of the other funding from the school safety account that was created last session is now bubbled up into tier C of the pupil-centered funding formula. And so there's no requirement for a school or a district to participate in the survey for eligibility for funding purposes. The only caveat to that is that with the addition of the school climate survey metrics in the annual plan to improve the achievement of pupils required by NRS 385A650, those categories and the constructs of school climate are well defined in statute, and that is a statutory requirement. So my assumption is that if Douglas County School District or any school district opted not to participate in the survey, they would have to come up with another alternative for collecting that data in a way that allowed them to use it for that statutory requirement.
Thank you.
The
Go ahead, hang on a second, please.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Christy, I thought it was somebody else.
No, it's okay.
How rude.
Hey,
Go ahead,
it's
Christy. Go ahead, sorry, I know. I can't hear you.
I was just gonna say the real intent of the climate survey is to assist schools at school level data for school improvement, because climate is such an integral piece. And if you only look at the academic piece, you're missing a fairly large piece of the school improvement process. So that's really the intent and the hope that we have, that schools have the tools they need for good school improvement plans.
And I'll just add, you know, I think Christy makes a really good point. The thing that I'm most proud of all the work that we've done since I started on this project in 2017, are those resources that we've developed, because those have been done in partnership with our building level administrators and our educators, where they said, this is what would make this data useful in our school or in our classroom, in our district. And we said, great, let's develop a resource to help you make that useful. We don't do any analyses or reporting at the state level on those data. These are really collected to support local and site level decisions on how to support your families, your students, and your educators in alignment with that multi-tiered system of support framework that you guys have been so good at implementing, and which I think frankly you see in your results.
My final question is it the exact same questions for grades 5 through 12?
No, the gender question is not given to any student that's younger than grade 9. So the gender question only goes to grades 9, 10, and 11, and 12. So they would never even see that question. Remaining questions are all the same, and there's extensive work to validate the design of those questions so that they're validated for grades 5 through 12, which is why the survey is not administered to younger grades. It's much harder to get the right reading level and comprehension level to a younger student on those types of surveys. So we only administer 5 through 12 because that's what the items are validated at.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Trustee Engelkert.
Yeah, hi. Is this, so this, the survey we have right here, this is what's presented to all the students?
I think if I can see that far, can you tell me what year that is on the front? Is that 1920?
2021.
2021. Yeah, so,
Okay.
and I believe is that the survey administration manual or the items? No, you're right, you've got it.
Should be the items.
Okay, I just have a question. The students go through and answer this, and you say that the question 4, which is about gender identity, is only for 9 through 12, but there's a thing here. If you answered that you're a 9 through 12th grader, then answer your question. If you didn't, then you shouldn't answer it. So the question looks to me like it's on the test.
So there's a couple, if you go 2 steps up,
Yep.
the first question asks what grade you're in. If a student selects ungraded, which is incredibly rare, most students know what grade they're in, and we do have some ungraded students, but if a student selects ungraded, we added that second question there that says, if they select ungraded, we ask them, what grade band do you fall within? You know, age-wise, are you within the 5 to 8 range or the 9 to 12 range? The only way that a younger student could stumble onto that gender identity question would be if they had first marked that they were ungraded and then also marked that they were grades 9 through 12. The way that most user IDs are sent, however, unless you're in a small school that covers grades 5 through 12 or 5 through 8, for example, most user IDs are issued at the level of the school level. And so if you have an elementary school, your user IDs are tied to those elementary grades. In Nevada, that's mostly grade 5 now, but in the past, it could also have been grades 5 or 6. Middle school IDs are tied to 7 and 8 or 6, 7 and 8. We have a handful of junior highs. It would be 7, 8, and 9, and then most high schools are 9 through 12.
Okay. I guess my feeling is that question really doesn't help with what the school is trying to do. To me, this seems like trying to bring in a agenda item that does not belong to be answered to any kids 9 through 12 or younger. And I believe our county as a whole will be very opposed to that question. That's a question that should be raised with parents and students. So I really think that question should not even be on the survey.
Just to note why it came up in the legislature, and again, we're just the messengers here, but just so you guys know, it did come up in the legislature that we did add that because that population tends to be at risk, and so it's a way of trying to get the schools prepared for the supports if needed, if that child is at risk. And we've had, we had to listen to very upset parents, sad parents that have lost their students due to dying by suicide. And so one of the things that we try to work with our districts is to give you all the data you need to plan for those supports.
I guess my feeling is, most students, most young people are going through life and this isn't even an issue. And the fact that it's brought up, it brings it into their sphere of thinking about, and it just is not healthy because there is clear data that shows that it is unhealthy for most people that go through this whole transgender thing. And I have it in my family. It's not that I'm not aware of it. And so to me, it's just, we're bringing in a subject that should be discussed at home. It should not be discussed.
Amen.
I might just,
Trustee Chichester. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to respond quickly that when we administered the survey in spring fall 2019 for the first time, and keeping in mind that this survey, the state survey goes to our 15 rural and frontier districts, and then our state-sponsored public charter schools. Anytime that we have 10 or less responses, we don't report that, right? That's just good best practices for data reporting, because you could unintentionally identify someone if you have less than 10. But when we looked at all of the responses to this item through those 15 rural and frontier districts and our state-sponsored charter schools, we had 300 valid responses on that fall 2019 survey. And in this 2021 spring survey, we have just about 240 valid responses. So That's broken up across a chunk of the state, geographically, most of the state, and a lot of local education agencies, 15 school districts, and a host of charter academies that have the right to be treated as the same way that a district. And so there was enough data there that I think it's valuable, especially at the district level. When you get to a school level, it's difficult because you're not likely to have more than 10 students in your population in a way that would allow us to report it. But when we look at the state level, and we saw those results, as you saw in the PowerPoint, it's pretty common to have your students that identify as neither male nor female to have statistically significantly worse outcomes for all of those things. And so I think one of the blessings and the beauties of database decision-making is it says, it helps us identify where we do have problems so that we can more effectively respond and provide those supports. And like Christy said, that early intervention, the prevention work that you guys have been doing that have led to the outcomes in physical safety that you've had, they're going to do the same thing for emotional safety as you build in those supports. And so I think as you look at these different student populations that you serve, you have an opportunity to actually do some good with that data, or to look at it and to meaningfully understand where the challenges lie.
I think that the cat might be out of the bag because of the fact that we have all these people responding to this question. But I appreciate what you're doing with the students you have, and thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have to,
We're gonna have to
excuse me,
stop if
we have to take a stop because it's 5:30 and we have to take public comment. Will you guys be able to stay? It could be a while. I'm not sure. We don't have too many people, but,
I just have one quick question. How are you funded?
How am I? I'm paid by the Department of Education. Both of us are state employees. Are you asking about the
we pay.
survey?
Taxpayers pay.
Yeah.
So my salary, yes, we're both public employees.
Yep.
The survey has been funded by federal grants and a combination of federal grants and state grants.
Okay,
do we have to keep them, do you think, or can we?
Are you guys
We're
good if
gonna
they,
discuss it among ourselves later, right?
what's that?
We're gonna discuss it.
We can come back to it as a discussion, but you need Amber and Christie to stay.
No, I think you guys.
Okay.
Amber and Christie, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for the invitation.
I love what you do. I think it's valuable, and thank you.
We'll come back
Absolutely.
anytime.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we have public comment. The comments are from, the public are invited at this time on topics not specifically addressed elsewhere in the agenda. So we're not going to talk about what we've just talked about, all right? It would
talk
be
about that later.
anything, we'll give you a chance to talk about that later, I promise. The sign-up sheet, I have it in my hand. I believe there's another one somewhere. If you change your mind and want to sign up, you can see Mr. Gardner. Let's see what else. What do I need to tell you about this? Make sure you speak nice and loud so our board members can all hear you. Trustee Chichester will explain about the 3 minutes. And again, I would just ask that we show respect to each other. One person talk at a time. Don't shout out, yell at each other, or yell at anybody. Let's remain that we're kind individuals and we all want what's best for our kids and our teachers. Thank you. Our first person, and when you come up, please state your full name for the record. And I have Michelle.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. Oh, he's gonna explain.
First of all, you have 3 minutes under public comment. At 2.5 minutes, I will hold up the yellow card. At 3 minutes, we'll ask you to make sure you conclude your remarks. Okay, so after you state your name, I start the time.
My name is Michelle Long. When we moved here, we were told to tread lightly when speaking up on issues to the school administration because our students might be targeted. I thought, wow, what type of society have we become that I have to be fearful of standing up and advocating for my child? I will tell you how. In May of this year, I posted a comment on a community Facebook page asking if there were other parents wanting to do something about the mask mandates. The elementary school principal at Scarcelli Elementary proceeded to publicly comment on that post. She was combative and told us that she had never had a student approach her about wearing a mask. and that there were only 3 weeks left, so the kids could just deal with it. Based on the comments from the public that came after that, and I'm assuming phone calls, etc., she backtracked and publicly apologized on Facebook and asked that we be respectful of her views. I find that so ironic because during the last board meeting, Linda Gilkerson also asked for respect. Yet in a formal press release and posted to the DCSD Facebook page, and I quote, you said, "It was so difficult sitting at the meeting and listening to people insult and yell at our superintendent for supposedly doing nothing to help the students in our district, at the same time as he was politely sitting at the meeting and taking the unwarranted abuse." Does that sound respectful? No, it doesn't. It's intimidation. And you deleted that press release, I'm sure after the backlash that the school district received. There was also a lot of praise around for Superintendent Keith Lewis, and I paraphrase and quote, "Keith was busting his butt behind the scenes where the public can't see, and he deserves a great deal of gratitude from our community." Well, I wouldn't have disagreed had I known you were working on something. That was not communicated to any of the parents. Do you feel that you don't have to communicate that to us? Where was the respect, gratitude, and praise to the parents? The ones that shared their heart-wrenching stories of their children's mental health decline? The ones that were already experiencing extreme anxiety of the possibility of having to ask their 5-year-old? The ones that filled this room last week to express their frustration and anguish? I have also heard that teachers are already telling students that they shouldn't get too excited about no masks because it's coming. That is also intimidation on a student level. I was told when I arrived here to put on a mask. I expressed I was medically exempt. I was told that I would be trespassed. I don't even know what that means. That is a
Thank you.
punishment and intimidation.
Thank you.
I will leave you with this. When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty, and Douglas County parents are on duty.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Teresa.
Hi, Teresa Machado, 1995 DHS grad, UNR grad, mom, wife, and realtor. I'm gonna take a mask break.
With our crowd, huh?
Pardon me?
You would fit in with our other crowd.
Absolutely, yeah. Go Tigers, go Wolfpack. I'm gonna take a mask break. I do have a medical exemption as well, and I'm kind of getting lightheaded. And they let our students do it last year, so I'm sure it'll be okay. I'd like to thank you all for being here. I'd like to ask that you keep an open mind and an open heart, as I think you always try to do, so we can do what's best for our kids, not just what's best for funding. We're on day 2 of school, and the outpouring of emails and letters we've received as some parents that we didn't know we were going to be at the helm of something like this, but here we find ourselves. The concerns include the recalled test, the adverse effects of having our student athletes tested with nosebleeds, headaches, the questionable coding on the swabs used for testing, and the false positives and negatives. Multiple anonymous student letters have been received. I'll read you one. To whom it may concern, I feel that COVID testing for student athletes such as myself should not be mandatory. The tests are not accurate and they are harmful to students. There's no purpose for the use of tests. If students are allowed to be in school at full capacity and are allowed the option of wearing masks or not, how can we be forced to undergo weekly testing if we don't have any symptoms? And what if my parents say I can't get tested? Am I off the team? Am I benched? Is my college and career, or maybe a professional career, is that just deleted? I highly encourage you to rethink the process for student athlete testing. Please do not take away my freedom when it's not yours to take. Kindly, anonymous DHS athlete. Another concern is segregation. It seems to be that's kind of happening to the unvaccinated and unmasked kids. It seems to be coming from the top down, and I would hate to think that you guys would allow anything like that. So we definitely need a solution or something in process to make it work. I heard from a concerned parent today that a student is taking the segregation extremely hard. She can't be vaccinated. She has other underlying issues that will not prohibit her from that, and she can't wear a mask. I'm sure you're aware that the extremely heightened teen suicide data and that it's a really serious issue. This is a choice, and our kids shouldn't be put in a corner where they have a different view on something. Our kids are in school to learn math, science, English, real history, independent thinking, and responsible decision-making. I'd like to note that oxygen to the brain might be included in a school safety and overall safe emotional and physical school climate for students, referring back to the part of education presentation. I've received some anonymous letters from concerned teachers as well about getting vaccinated, being forced to wear a mask. Their biggest concerns are the number of deaths attributed to vaccination, the number of the words aren't coming out, number of hospitalizations within the vaccinated, and feeling that their passion, their job, and their livelihood are all at risk. Some kids are being told to mask back up and that compliance will, and I quote, be big fat raises for teachers. By the way, which I think our teachers are entitled to, but not for following mandates. It would be for silly mandates that completely disregard science and reality.
Teresa, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have, you guys know, you already know what order you're in, Marie.
We may have been waiting.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Marie Foster. I'm a concerned parent, taxpayer. Guys, I want to talk to you guys about the governor's end game because it felt like a temporary win. Your guys' rhetoric matched our opinions at the beginning. You didn't want the masks, you wanted them gone, things like that. Sorry, I'm going to talk about this, but I've been watching you pull your mask away from your face so you can breathe, and we're 40 minutes into this. Imagine what we were doing to our children all year at 6 hours a day, guys. I've got a 2-minute video of you pulling it away so you can get air, and so you're not sweaty, and just imagine how much that just caused so much of a lack of focus. We cannot go back. No.
Okay.
We can't go back, guys. You voted 5-2 for the mask mandate. That was holding until you saw a big push from parents. And Linda, I'm so sorry that you and Keith felt like it was abuse, but it took that to get the attention. And so that you guys understood what the community was worried about and scared about and what your children are saying. And regarding the suicide rate, this one scared me, guys. I've been approaching nurses hoping that they would just release some information off their gag orders because they're gag ordered. They get suspended from social media. I have a letter here from a nurse that says, I have been a nurse in the Valley for a really long time, and I prefer not to give my years of experience on this as I need to protect myself. Last week, when the mask mandates were made and heard about, 5 of our 18 ICU beds were immediately filled by attempted suicides, kids under the age of 18. We have a real pandemic, guys. These kids live in learned helplessness with the propaganda of the vaccines, the threat of lockdowns, which our teachers are already talking about, our teachers telling them, don't get hopeful with this because your masks are going to get put back on. That's learned helplessness, and that is an animal response to protect your mind and your soul when you cannot change your environment. Those 5 kids saw one way out at the beginning of school, and they're in a hospital right now on a 24-hour watch for suicide. Praise God, they made it. I talked to another nurse, the finish of this letter said, I wish it was a shock, but for the past year, this has just been more than normal due to the COVID restrictions, not just lockdowns. Our children are suffering. The blood clots from the vaccines are real. I've never seen so many people on hairpin drips. I fear that we're going to see some big issues down the road. D-timer tests are elevated more than I've ever seen, and I can't talk about it on social media. These are the people that are taking care of us that can't tell us what's happening. I have a letter dated June 7th from the CDC. We requested a Freedom of Information Act that they isolate the COVID virus the same way they can isolate the flu, RSV, and all the other viruses. And this letter states that they cannot isolate it. If you enforce this, the burden of proof comes onto you. Prove that the vaccine works. Prove that the masks without failure are working and that your tests don't have false positives.
Thank you, Marie, for your words. Next, we have Casey.
supplies. Casey Rogers for the record.
Thank you.
There is a lawsuit. And I found this off the internet, that there has been 45,000 people who have allegedly died from the COVID-19 vaccine within 3 days, according to the US whistleblower, which has sparked a lawsuit against the federal government. Thomas Renz, an attorney based in Ohio, has started a lawsuit against the federal government for covering up the true number of COVID deaths from the vaccines. Joey Gilbert is also a part of that lawsuit. I'm going to read from what I found on AmericanFrontlineDoctors.org. They have a case on there for anybody who wants to view it. I have provided the superintendent, the legal counsel, both with a copy. I'm going to read from page 22, regulatory and factual context. The EUAs for COVID-19 vaccines have been illegal from the start. There is and has been no bona fide underlying epidemiological emergency from COVID-19. Instead, an artificial emergency that is nothing more than a legal construct has been imposed on the population based on the false COVID-19 death count, the result of illegal rule changes obliterating the distinction between dying with and dying from COVID-19 and changing procedures and definitions for COVID-19 death certificates, and a false COVID-19 case count, the result of extensive PCR testing deployed at amplification cycles universally agreed even by the WHO, the CDC, and Dr. Fauci to produce false positive test results. I'm moving forward. Give me your picture. Moving forward, the spike proteins, this is going on to page 47. The spike proteins created by the COVID-19 vaccines are risky, reproductive health, vascular disease, autoimmune disease. Spike proteins directly cause disease, effect on the young, chronic disease, unknown effects, effects on society, extreme danger, collusion to censor, whistleblowers. It's all in here for you to read. The studies on these injections at the end of are on the bottom part of page 53 says the studies on these injections absolutely do not scientifically conclude that they are safe and effective. That is the information that I provided to you, as well as I provided American Frontline Doctors white paper, Civil Liberties Surrounding Medical Experimentation. And in there you can see everything from the FDA approval, emergency use authorization, COVID-19 vaccines, informed consent emergency use, liability, business not shielded from liability from experimental agents, informed consent history, Nuremberg codes. It's all in here for you to view. Because I don't feel like if you knew this stuff, which I'm pretty sure you do, if you know this, what are you doing? The CDC's information is counterintuitive to what is actually happening, and these doctors are fighting under the arm of everything that's happening, are forced not to do it. This is crimes against humanity.
Linda, I don't want to talk out of turn, but a bunch of people are saying they can't get on Zoom.
Oh, okay, thank
The
you.
code's wrong.
Okay. John, maybe you can work on that. Thank you for that. Yeah. And Casey, thank you for your words. Next I have, is it? What did you say?
Leah.
Leah, I'm sorry, you're pretty so cute.
Thank
I
you.
couldn't read it. Okay, could you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, I am Leah Yeomans. I'm a mother and a wife, and a Douglas Head graduate as well. And I just want to go on record to say that I completely agree with all these parents behind me. I have 2 students now at the high school level, and they are scared. They are athletes. They don't know what to expect. And instead of going out and enjoying the best years of their life, they are worried about masks. They are worried about testing, and they are worried about the segregation, because apparently those that have been vaccinated do not have to test, when it has been proven that those that are vaccinated are continuing to spread COVID. They are continuing to contract it and spread it. So this vaccination that everyone is talking about is not a vaccine, because it doesn't work. And yet you guys are going to hold our students responsible for not, first of all, they don't get to choose. We are their parents. We have to protect them. And that is what we are all doing here today. They are scared and they shouldn't be scared. They shouldn't be scared to speak up to their teachers who, needless to say, some of them they're absolutely amazing. And there's other teachers out there that they tell them the masks are coming. Don't get too happy. Oh, I just need you guys to understand what is happening to these students, what they are going through on a day-to-day basis. And yes, when we found out that they didn't have to be required to wear their masks, there was a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. So I just want to go on the record and say that pushing for this mandate, pushing for these vaccinations, and pushing for the testing is wrong. And it should be left up to the parents who I've always had the best interest for their children. It is not up to the school district. It is not up to our government who leads us to believe they're out for our well-being when we know it's all about control. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leah. Next, we have Mr. Nicholas. Nicholas B, sorry.
Nicholas
There's two Nicholases in a row.
Nicholas Brashears.
That's you, right?
All right, short and sweet. I'm asking the 5 board members that voted to mask our children to resign immediately. You do not have our children's best interest in mind, and we need parents in these positions to make the decisions for the children that have the best interests and are not afraid of the governor and his funding. That is what all you guys really give a fuck about, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
And I will recall you, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Nicholas M.
Legal process. We'll do it.
Can you go ahead and state your name first, sir?
My name is Nicholas Meyer, and I'm a resident of Gardnerville, and I'm also on the Planning Commission for Douglas County. I've read the Douglas County reopening plan cover to cover. I don't envy the members of this board. You're being asked to make medical decisions, which I suspect few of you signed up for. But the simple fact is this: the CDC and the NIH are giving you and the American people bad advice about COVID virus. They are not following their own science. Let's look at the effectiveness of masks. Respiratory viruses spread through airborne transmission, and virus particles are so small they can pass through any mask. There is no definitive study at the CDC or NIH that shows that masks or social distancing have any effect whatsoever on the spread of the virus. Second, the CDC's and the NIH's own literature show that both HCQ and ivermectin are effective, low-cost therapeutics to combat COVID. Their own literature. Yet our governor is practicing medicine without a license and has banned physicians from prescribing these medications to patients. Instead, they push forward with experimental vaccines that have not undergone any third-stage trials or have been studied for long-term effects. The fact is, no vaccine prevents you from being affected and spreading the virus. You just don't show any symptoms. We've seen a breakout of COVID in the middle of summer in Massachusetts. More than 5,100 Massachusetts residents have tested positive for COVID-19, despite being fully vaccinated against the virus, and at least 80 of them have died. Therefore, you cannot treat the vaccinated and the unvaccinated differently, as the Douglas County reopening plan states. It is discriminatory and wrong to apply weekly testing to the unvaccinated when the vaccinated are spreaders as well.
Exactly. Yep.
The simple fact is COVID will be with us forever. just like the common cold and the flu. And we need to start treating it like we've treated every other respiratory virus, like SARS-1 and bird flu. The idea that we're going to eliminate the virus with vaccines is unscientific and extremely harmful thinking. Lockdowns and social distancing just create a whole host of new problems like depression and teen suicide. I urge the board to delve deeply into the literature. You will find that children and teens have an almost infinitesimal small risk of COVID, and they are actually the key to our immunity.
Thank you, Nicholas. And the last person I have on my list is Dr. Fred.
Good evening, board. I'm Fred Simon. I appreciate the work you have to do. I had a wife on the board, in school for 8 years. It's a very difficult job. I am board certified in surgery intensive care unit medicine. I volunteered in 2020 in a COVID ICU. I'm 68 years old and I'm not vaccinated. I think what you just heard are many of the facts that exist. There's a tremendous amount of propaganda going on in this country. You can, as an expert, have an opinion, but you as an expert must back it up with the science.
That's right.
I'm one of the busiest medical legal experts in the United States in general surgery and trauma. I've testified in 50 trials. I've put forth 850 affidavits that have never gone outside the court and been challenged. I'm a medical expert. And the point that I'm trying to make to you is anybody can get on television and say that they're a doctor and give you information and have an opinion. What you just heard is the truth. And when you come to find out about it, you're going to find out that the CDC went to the patent agencies and got the patent on COVID-19
That's right,
virus
they sure did.
and follow the money.
Yep.
I will tell you another fact which we heard here. Our children are anxious, depressed, and you better look at the mental illness of this process. There is no data in the literature to support masks. There's no data in the literature to support 6-foot distancing. There is no data to support the propaganda that we're hearing. You, as the board, I challenge you, if you're going to make a policy and a process, you must provide data to the citizens. If you can't provide prospective studies that support your opinion, I think you need to rethink your position. That's how it's done in medicine. It's called best practice, and it's also called you follow the science. And we're not doing that in this country. It's all political. And who's suffering more than anybody? It's the children. And I've seen it across the country. And in the last 2 weeks, I've been in Colorado, California here. They're not wearing masks in Colorado. They're not wearing masks in California. And they're wearing masks here in Nevada because of a governor. So again, I appeal to you. We practice evidence-based medicine. We should practice evidence-based policy.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do something, you should provide the data to all these parents on what you do. It has to be evidence-based. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fred, for your comments. At this time, we're going to take a 10-minute break, so we'll resume at 6:10.
We have comments online.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Gosh darn it.
We need to make sure that.
We have 3, sorry.
Star 9, right?
Star 9 to.
So if you are joining us on a telephone, just a reminder that you can raise your hand if you punch in star 9.
Star 6 to raise your hand,
Oh.
star 9 will unmute
Oh.
you if we don't, when allowed.
Okay, star 6 to raise hand, star 9 to unmute.
All right.
Can I have a Stephanie Delude?
Okay, we'll have her say her name and spell it, okay? Stephanie, are you there?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, and could you go ahead and state your name and spell your last name for us, please?
Yes, hi, my name is Stephanie DeLug, D as in dog, ELUG, and I'm a parent. And I just want to say I feel real bad for you guys. It must be a very difficult job, but I'm here to support all of the parents and Fred Simon. And I also want to say something that Fred mentioned about no masks in California. My kids were at Disneyland last week and nobody there was wearing a mask. So I do find it interesting that Nevada and the schools and the sports still, require these masks. But mainly I'm here for support, and I just want to say thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Okay, who do we have next?
We have Jessica Harmon.
Okay, Miss Jessica, can you go ahead and state your name for us, please?
Jessica Harmon.
Thank you.
And I have a comment regarding COVID-19. If we're so worried about it, why is it okay? Because I've heard numerous parents talking about it. Boys and Girls Club has someone that got tested positive on Friday. Why is it okay for them to bring their children to school Monday morning if one of them tested positive for COVID without wearing a mask and drop off their kids? Not sure why they were allowed on campus or their kids were. They should all be in quarantine. That's all I have to say because I've heard numerous parents talking about this at different schools.
Thank you, Stephanie, for your comments.
That was Jessica.
Jessica, sorry, Jessica. Thank you, Jessica, for your comments.
Next, we have David Johnson.
Okay, can you go ahead and state your name for us, please?
Hi, my name is Dr. David Johnson. I'm a physician in this community and I'm a parent of 2 kids that go to the high school. So I was involved in treating COVID patients in this community during last year. And from February, when we started counting until November the 4th, we had put 400 people in the hospital for COVID-19, and we had 21 fatalities. And from November the 4th to December the 4th, that number went up to 1,600 cases that had been in the hospital, and we were over 66 fatalities. And by the time we got to January, we were over 2,000 cases that had been through the hospital, and we were over 100 fatalities. So there is an impact to our community of what goes down here. And I understand that this has been very politicized, but I agree with some of the things that have been said. We definitely need to follow the science. It is not scientific to say there is no data to support masks. You're just not looking in the right places. There is data for that. Now, do we need to be punitive toward children that don't wear masks and the testing of students that have not been vaccinated? I'm not really sure that there's any support for that. And a lot of the medical community doesn't support that. But it is not reasonable to say that social distancing measures don't have an impact. We almost did not have a flu season this last year. It flies in the face of reason that when you have a respiratory illness that's passed from person to person, that staying away from other people avoids passing that illness. So there is data. I think we should present our respective data on this topic, but I just don't think it's reasonable to send all of these social distancing measures out the window. That doesn't work. And that impact hits our community. This is like an avalanche. And once it starts rolling, the dynamics of this is huge. And once it's got rolling, and once we're putting people in the hospital, we don't stop. And now our hospitals are struggling. We are struggling to try to keep afloat after everything that it cost to take care of those patients. There was no financial benefit to us to take care of those patients. We lost, and now we're struggling for staff, and we're struggling to have what we need to take care of the other patients. This is still here, and everybody's right. This is going to be with us for a long time, and we're going to surge again and again until it finally quiets down into just another respiratory illness that goes through our communities. But I just really think that we're making a mistake here by generalizing about the masks. And I think,
3 minutes.
Sorry, you're 3 minutes.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is that it, or is there anyone else?
We have one more.
Okay. Who is it? Excuse me a minute. Can I please remind us that we.
Hey, we're in a public meeting.
Can we please keep it down when someone's talking, even if it's not something you agree with? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
We have Todd Pope.
All right. Todd, you're good. Let's go. You're on now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. State your name for the record.
My name is Todd Poth for the record. Thank you very much for your service. I don't envy you guys. This has been going on for a while, back and forth, everything else. I also want to thank the parents that gave respectful and good, solid opinions about different stuff. Even though I disagree, I think that their opinions should be considered. And there's some that brought up some very valid points. Mask, no mask. I'm glad we have a local control. I think local control is much better than state control. Personally, I would err on the side of caution and had started off with masks from the beginning and then seen what happened with the numbers. But I know that's probably not very popular, at least in that room. What I really want to talk about is Trustee Magnata last week and his comment that anyone wearing a mask should be ashamed of themselves. I feel that was a direct insult against a lot of people. Someone who has cancer and has to wear a mask. Should they be ashamed? Should my daughter, who's 5 years old and has been on a ventilator 5 different times pre-COVID, be ashamed to wear a mask? Should I be afraid? Should I be ashamed? Listen, I understand passions were running high. I would ask that everyone, that if you did make a mistake and you did say stuff in passion high, that you would issue a formal apology to that aspect and we move on. Cooler heads need to prevail in this situation, and screaming and yelling at people and telling them that they should be ashamed of themselves for wearing a mask is not where we're at. We're talking about making masks optional. We're talking about segregating the students. I agree. We should not be segregating students because they choose not to wear a mask. In the same way, we have to make sure we don't bully students for wearing a mask. And that behavior from a trustee was on the edge of bullying and completely uncalled for on all levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd, for your comments. You did?
And that is all we have online with their hands raised.
We're going to take it, we're going to take a 10-minute recess. We'll be back at 20 after, 19 after. We love you, guys. Oh, did you want to speak first?
Yeah, yes.
I
have a question.
Hang on 1 second. Hang on. Let's make sure we do this. So they can hear you, okay? Hang on 1 second.
Is there a question you want to ask in session? Is it what you want to ask in session, or do you just have a question before we get to session? Okay.
All right, are we ready? Okay, I left it off with Trustee McNaught had his hand up and I cut him off because we had to go take our break. And so I'm going to bring it back to you, Trustee McNaught. Go ahead.
Did the governor rescind the mask mandate?
After our meeting on Monday, he issued Directive 048, which took it from that we were required to follow CDC recommendations to we could go with highly recommended for students. The mandate also, the directive also says that it is required for all staff regardless of vaccination status. So there was a change in a directive that was issued.
And I want to thank you and all the other superintendents for presenting that to our governor, because I think you convinced him to go the other way.
I think we had some impact.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All righty, so now we finished public comment. Now we're going back to item number 11. And it's the Culture and Climate Survey
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
presentation that was given to us by Christy McGill and Amber Reed. And this is, now we can do some discussion, and it is for possible action. Trustee Chichester.
Trustee Lehman, we're back in session.
Oh, what do you got anymore?
Yes. You two blend in over there. Your hands, that's why Doug, you never get called on.
I know, you're like below your thing. Just push your chair up.
You look like you're sitting with the rest of them.
Are we waiting for him, or are we gonna go ahead?
We're going ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Trustee Chichester.
Said you had a quorum.
Better, so much better.
You're a big kid now. Okay, Trustee Chichester.
I have a problem with surveys being given to our school children that parents are not aware of. I believe that there should be, and I would hope that we would do this, a policy made that parents can opt their children out of these surveys if they choose to, and they can go online because they've all got the ability to go online and they can check out the survey and opt out of their child taking the survey if they choose to do so. So I would like that to be in the form of a motion, but I know that other people want to discuss. So should I not make a motion?
I don't know. Does anyone have anything else they want to add? I'll start with Trustee Engelkirk. Go ahead.
I would say on that case, then why don't we have them opt-in? Because people are not always going to the school board website. You know, you don't check these things all the time. It's like the same thing with the meeting last week. I heard some people commenting about not knowing about it. So either we have to have some sort of a way of contacting all the parents, or we have it be an opt-in thing. And so people that are interested in finding this stuff out, they can look for it and they can find it, and they can opt in.
So in response to that, Trustee Engelkirk, I would say that number one, we wouldn't do it discreetly, like just hiding it on the website and hoping people saw. We'd be active in our, we use our auto dialer system very effectively. We follow up with, we know that people hang up on it, they get tired of it. But we follow up with an email and a text message. I would tell you that I would prefer an opt-out, but again, it comes, and what Trustee Chichester is saying is absolutely true. I mean, it's fair criticism of us last year that number one, it wasn't communicated, and the survey wasn't there for people to be able to view to make those informed decisions. So those are all commitments that I have as superintendent for not only this survey. There's a youth behavior risk survey that is also given, and any survey that we conduct needs to be fairly communicated and timely communicated as well.
Okay, I'm fine with the opt-out if we have a good way. I mean, I don't know all your communication, but there should be a way if you have everybody's emails to let everybody know that the survey is coming up. And then I would say if we were going to do some kind of a motion along that line, I would also add that we would remove question 4. I just don't think it's appropriate. And I think the people of this county feel that way too, in general, and majority.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I really don't.
You don't have a problem with the question?
No, I don't have a problem with removing the question. I don't like those kind of questions anyway. I really don't like those questions in school-age children.
So what I would maybe ask is the survey would not be administered till October. We meet again in September. I would like to be able to go do some homework on what does that look like to take that question out, so that we can make an informed decision on what that truly looks like. And again, in that survey itself, as they said tonight, it has value to us. I mean, it does have, there's a lot in there that has value. We need to know where our kids are. Where are they socially and physically from a safety standpoint? As they talked about in our school performance, in the Nevada School Performance Framework, of which schools are, you get your star ratings, that's a component of it. So again, if you guys would be willing, we can bring this back to the agenda in September with more information of what that looks like if we take out question 4, so that we can make a informed decision.
I'd like to say something,
Okay.
if I may. You know, we talked about suicide tonight and the high rates of kids that are attempting or struggling with it in regards with masks. I think if you take out question 4, then you're ignoring the children that are probably more at risk than kids that aren't going to answer that question. So I feel like, I personally feel like they don't have to answer it. So it's their choice. But if there's a child that's reading that question and maybe they are looking for some help or want to self-identify, maybe it's the first time they've ever, you know, looked at that question and realized what they're going through, and it's a way for them to express that. Other kids, they can just ignore it and move on. So I just feel like, you know, when we start picking and choosing and removing things that can help some, and maybe, I don't know, she said 300, or I don't remember what the number was. It was a big enough number, I feel. And these are just my opinions, but that's how I feel about that question. I don't think that it's I don't think it takes away anything from kids by asking that question. And again, if we do an opt-out, then parents can just opt out of the whole survey if they'd like to. And that's, again, just my opinion.
Question for the superintendent. Is this the first, obviously, this has been administered more than 1 year, correct? Is this the first year that question 4 was on that survey?
No. So that question was on, so this is the 4th year of the survey, but the 2nd year that question was on the survey. She said in 2019, so we've administered it 2 times. It came out of the 18 legislative session. And so it has been on there. This is the first time it's been an issue at the community level. But again, you know, there were probably a lot of parents that didn't know it was being asked. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, based on what we hear, even if it's been in place for 4 years, a lot of people don't understand it's being administered.
Yes.
Just in regard to what you were saying, Linda, I think that's the whole issue is this whole question's been presented to kids that I mean, kids don't know what their identity is. They don't know what they want to be. They don't know a lot of stuff. So just bringing a question like this up, just, you know, like the lady that came and complained, her 5-year-old or 5th grade son came home and said, what's a pangender? I mean, we don't need to be bringing this stuff up and educating them about something that they don't really need to think about at this point. If your parents want, if it's an issue they want to ask, they can ask their parents, or they can, I just don't think it's an appropriate question, and I would hope we could make a motion to strike it. I won't be here. I'll be in the Indian Ocean. I don't know how my internet will be.
I wouldn't trust your internet.
Next meeting, so
Satellite.
if you are going to do it next time, I would hope you would know that what my position is, vote that way or accordingly. So.
Thank you. I disagree because I've worked with a lot of, in a lot of areas in our community that deal with that. And I know those children that are struggling, and those are the ones that we really need to wrap our arms around a little bit tighter. Maybe some of the other ones. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's not Peter Briller. Sorry. Excuse me. I'm talking. Excuse me. I'm talking. You're out of order. And we will give you a chance to speak, I promise. Okay. But let me finish. Thank you. I just know that the kids that struggle with issues about identity, they are more at risk. And I think trying to identify that and seeing if they have a problem, I don't think there's any harm or foul with it. It's just, again, my opinion. Okay.
But I've got one more comment.
Okay.
So the thing is, the way that it's all covered up, or the way that they get their IDs and stuff like that, it doesn't tell you what a particular kid anyway. It doesn't tell you anything. It just gives you a ballpark number.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you identify those kids that need that extra? I mean, you can't from this survey.
I would think that with I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would think that with surveys of this nature and surveys in general, there are kids that would answer questions erroneously as a spoof.
I would think so too.
And not answer seriously, even if it was a serious, you know.
They
I
can
think
answer,
there's a percentage of that.
I agree. I think they can answer any of those questions.
Yeah,
when you say
exactly.
that. So you
Surveys are
can't-
surveys.
The only point I'm making here honestly is that we're so concerned about mass suicide, the health and welfare of our children, that I think we need to carry it all the way through to those that are struggling and not to be less, because maybe they are struggling with their identity. And by having something on a survey, I think it helps them to know that maybe to be able to take the next step and talk to somebody. That's all. Anybody else? So are we going, do we want to make?
It's up to you guys, you guys.
Well, we're gonna do that.
I
Just a
don't
minute,
tell you
I'll
what
give
to
you a
do.
chance, I promise.
We want to listen to public comment first.
No,
You have to have a motion
You
first.
have to have a
Oh.
motion
Okay.
first.
I would like to make a motion that, first of all, that when there's a survey offered, that the school board or the superintendent's office makes an effort to contact parents, and they have the option to opt out. And that secondly, question 4 is removed from the questionnaire.
Okay, we have a motion made. Does anyone want a second? Okay, motion seconded. Now we have public comment. If you want to come up, we have to have a sign up, sorry. Oh, did you guys already do it?
Oh, yeah.
We're at the, I think we have a few.
You guys are on top of it. All right.
There's people that want to speak that haven't signed in.
And thank you for waiting your turn. I appreciate it. Well,
Very Foster's the first one on the list.
Rob, if you can, please. Important that he's in here, I think. If he can, I mean, thank you. Marie, you know you're first on the list, right now?
Yeah.
Okay. You could come on and state your name again, and a bit redundant.
Okay, Marie Foster. And I'm glad this actually got brought up here. I really second Doug's opinion, and I do appreciate that you're making the effort to make this more aware for us as parents. Definitely send the survey to us. Why can't we see the questions you're asking our kids? And to counter your thoughts that an anonymous survey is going to help these kids fit in, you guys got a ton of extra funding this year. Why don't we beef up our counselors? Why don't we offer something real and substantial for those kids to go to? Because it's a small percentage, but every child matters, 100%. But we have an opportunity to up our counseling. And that's what's really going to help those individual kids. Not a survey. I don't believe this question should be on there. And the reason being, average lifespan, right? Maybe 80 years, somewhere around there. You have 60 years from the age of 20 to 80 to figure out your gender, what you want to be, who you want to get married to, who you want to have children with. You guys start asking these questions younger and younger and younger, and you're robbing them of their innocence. They should focus on being children. They should focus on English, math, science, social studies, what their parents are doing, what they're doing with their religion, if they're being a good student or not. They shouldn't be worried about where they fit in sexually, because that's what that comes down to. And I'm going to bring the proof for this next meeting, because this got me really fired up right now. But most of your transgenders, there's a very large number of transgender people that have either been sexually molested in their childhood, or they are themselves sexual predators that are registered. And that's a very common trait for that. So I think for these situations, we need to be looking harder at the counseling. My last comment is back to the masks. I want you to think about the size of districts, okay? Clark and Washoe are masked. They have a very large district. They have several schools that they can travel to, not in county, or in county, they don't have to travel out of county. So their unvaccinated students are not going to get tested.
But our kids that have one high school or two middle schools and have to travel continuously, constantly, are gonna get tested every week and bi-weekly.
Yeah.
Okay,
You know what, Maria,
by
I
the
have
sheer
to-
number,
I have to
we're gonna
stop
go
you.
up.
That's not what we're talking about now. You gotta stay on our topic.
I just wanted to get it out there for the parents and the people online so they can figure out what
Okay.
this is, because this game
we're done.
is gonna
We're
put us
done.
back in masks.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
now,
Is it
am I
time?
at my 3 minutes yet?
But it's the subject.
It's a subject.
I can go right back to it.
Thank you, go ahead. You still
Okay.
have time, I believe.
Our children deserve their innocence protected. They deserve their innocence protected above all. School should be a safe place for their innocence. It should be a safe place for their education. It should not be something that makes them so socially anxiety or worried. And you know, how many of these survey people, how many of these kids are gonna walk down the hall and they're gonna hear these kids that made fun of that question? They're gonna hear these kids, their peers saying, I can't believe this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Next, we have Tracy.
I just basically just want to say that I agree with everything that Marie said. As far as some of these surveys, I just feel like, my kids, I always ask my kids to wait so that I can read their surveys with them and go over it when they had the chance to do them at home. And most of the time, they're just trying to hurry up and get them done because I can't meet with them at the same time that they need to get done while I'm running out the door or vice versa. So it's really disappointing when I know my kids answering questions and getting questions asked to them that I have no idea why or what it is. So that's my greatest concern about that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Teresa. State your name for the record, please.
Hi, Teresa Machado, I'm back.
Thank you.
Thanks for sitting here with us for long haul. I just wanted to touch a little bit on this new topic. I've heard from some students, including my kids, that they feel more divided than ever. And it's pretty ironic that we live in the United States of America. And I know that's kind of a pipe dream anymore because it doesn't really feel like that anymore. But I don't know if you guys ever seen this meme, but there's two little boys and one happens to be Caucasian and one happens to be African American. And they showed up on I think it was Halloween, and they were twins. And some of the kids are like, but you're not, like somebody else, like older kid was like, but you're not the same color. And they're like, what are you talking about? We're twins. Like, just kids, they don't see it. We have to teach them. And we can teach them good stuff, or we can teach them to find the negative or the bad or the differences. And we have plenty of divisiveness. And I think we have to stop being the far left and the far right. We have to come together. And I don't know if you guys ever seen the red and black game, but it's a team building game. And there's two groups, and you're the red, say we're the black. And they give you a set of rules. And I took this training when I was, I think, 18 or 19. And I walked out of the room. I was on the black team, and I went to the red team. And they're like, what are you doing? You can't do that. I said, no. In the rules, it doesn't say you can't talk. And I saw the BLM protest. I saw people sitting on the sidewalk holding hands, talking to each other. Don't you think that when we start doing stuff like that, that something's going to change? And I feel like you guys, you have your hearts in the right place. And I feel like you're really speaking up and doing what's right. And so we're not here. We don't ever want you guys to feel like we're here yelling at you, but it's hard because we are moms and we're passionate about it. And sometimes it's hard to volume control, but I know Tony appreciates it. So, so basically we just want to support our kids no matter what color, no matter what gender. I don't want any Caucasian kids to feel bad for having fair skin. I don't want any other, authenticity, any other ethnicity to feel bad for having more olive skin. And I don't want our kids to feel bad when it comes to like CRT and all these things, that they have to feel bad for what happened in the past, things that they didn't have control of our forefathers. They shouldn't feel bad about it. And I think when you start to erase history and change it, now you eliminate the learning that can come from it. So I just want to thank you for being open to the communications, the auto dial, emails, website, the right to opt in. I would also like to know on the test if we could ask that questions are optional. So like when the kids are reading, if somebody parent does want to opt in and maybe they didn't get to review it fully because they're like Casey running out the door, just that it says all questions are optional. We don't care how you answer them. Try to take it serious, but they're optional. And then I had one other question. A couple of years back, I was on a board to hire a committee subcommittee of this board to hire a GT counselor, because we had 60 GT kids that were on the verge of dropping out of high school.
Okay, I'm sorry, I gotta stop you.
Okay.
Stop.
But I would just like to know maybe later if that was something that was followed
Teresa,
through on.
you just email us your question, okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Teresa.
How do I do that?
Just email. Thanks. You can always email us questions. Next, we have Dr. Fred again. So go ahead and state your name for the record, please, sir.
Fred Simon. I do have some questions about this particular program. And I do have questions about our education process. And I do have questions why we're ranked so low in the United States with our education repetitively. And I do have questions when we put in the largest tax increase in the state that's supposed to go to education. We're still floundering with education, and we're trying to address things such as gender identity. And where is the money going? Does it flow to the children? It doesn't. I think we need to look at the school system in a very pathologic way. Because if you can't raise the level of what you're doing, and we're bottom of the basement in the United States, there's a problem. The education's a problem. We can't evaluate teachers, but I'll tell you, the colleges evaluated what's going on here. 40% of high school grads in Nevada don't have the skills to go into basic fundamental workforce. The Pell Grant students, 30% of them don't get an education with a degree. There are a lot of things out there telling us we're failures. Now, the other aspect of this that is really, really important, there is a crisis in the United States for mental health. A crisis. And it starts in the schools and it starts at home. But the ethics and morals of children, it belongs with the parents. It is not schools that are to teach the morals and ethics. It's the responsibility of the parents. But it's also the responsibility of an entire community to look over and watch for children that are at risk. And we don't do a good job at that. Take a look at suicide over the past decade. Take a look at all the anxiety and depression in children coming out of high school going into college. We have a huge crisis in this country. And everybody's too involved in all these other things. So I plead with you to look at Douglas County. Maybe you can be the unique county that takes a better look at education, because education is failing in the United States. There was a big school board meeting in Virginia today. There's all kinds of things going on where the entire country of parents are outraged by the lack of process that occurs with our young children from elementary school all the way through high school to college. So I would think that you're all very educated and understand these things and can look up new and innovative things. We innovated in technology, we don't innovate in education. We innovate in medicine, we don't innovate in education. The numbers are all there. And I appreciate all how hard you all work. I appreciate the hours that you put in, but the data speaks for itself.
Thank you, Dr. Fred. Next is Yvonne. You can go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Yvonne Wagstaff. Tony, thank you for winning the election. I didn't have to sit where you are. I would like to say I have 6 children, 2 that have graduated from Douglas High School over the last few years. And this last year, when my daughter came home, she was a freshman last year, that's the first time I've heard about this survey. But she did talk to me about what the survey entailed. Gender was not something she mentioned, but the other questions that were on the survey would point out someone that's having issues. Have you thought about suicide? Is it something you talk about? Have you thought about bringing guns to school? These are the kinds of questions that are on this survey. So not asking the gender, whether it's male, female, or unidentified, they're getting questions that are going to say, this student is having problems and we need to address those problems. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yvonne. Next, we have, is it Sue? Am I right? Is it Sue?
Yes.
Okay. Can you please?
I'm gonna stand. I think
That's
it's
fine.
good.
So you can stand. Can you state your full name for us, please?
Sue Reyes.
Thank you.
I am one of 11 kids. I am a mom, grandma, and a great grandma. When I went to school, all you learned was reading, writing, and arithmetic and history and geography. You didn't learn all this feel-good stuff. I'm a plant from, not a plant, but I transplanted from Southern California. I would never go back to California. I did not realize you had such a problem with your kids with drugs up here. And I don't know exactly what you're doing about it, but from what I understand, there's nothing on that survey about the kids who've been struggling for years. Apparently it's been a problem in Douglas County for a long time. I understand kids have problems with understanding their identity. We do too, sometimes. As adults, you go through divorce, you go through illness, you have deaths, your life changes and you struggle about who you are, where you are, what you're gonna do and your value. Kids go through the same thing, but they get through it. They have their family for that. You guys used to have, at least when I was in school, you had a school counselor. If you had a problem, you could go to your school counselor and talk to them. They were supposed to help you with things. They referred you to a counselor in the community and you had the community there to help you. And it wasn't, so the kids in the school didn't know you were having an issue because then you get made fun of. And believe me, they get made fun of a whole lot more than they did when I was growing up. It was bad enough having glasses. I would like to see that this is referred back to parents. As a parent, it's our responsibility to raise our children, teach them morals, teach them ethics. The school's job is to teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic like our original founding fathers did. And it is the school's job to teach them skills. Like when I was in high school, they had auto shop, they had ceramics, they had wood shop, they had all kinds of things for kids. We had sewing. I loved the sewing class. We had cooking classes where you learned how to have skills to go into life, whether it was to be a parent, a mom, or to be a secretary, whatever you wanted to be, you got basic skills so you could take those into the world. The kids nowadays aren't really getting that. And helping with the gender is only throwing a big, huge monkey wrench into their actually having life skills to take out there. It's a parent's job to help their kids walk through that, not the schools.
Thank you. Okay. So is there any more comment about?
Two online.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Didn't see that. All right, who do we have, John?
Okay, we have Ryan Nelson, Matt Harper, all on the same line, so I'm gonna go ahead and allow them to talk.
Okay, if you could, gentlemen, if you go ahead and say your name, please, for the record.
Yes, Ryan Nelson, RyanNelson. Sorry, that's my Zoom name for a different business. Anyway, first, I would like to say that I do believe that this needs to be informed, that the parents need to be informed about these surveys. We get slips in our students' backpacks all the time. This should be one of those slips. That's one of the easiest ways for parents to be informed about this. As for the gender question, I have a little bit of firsthand experience because of my daughter. Her cousin is bisexual. Her best friend is gay. Both of them were sexually molested. They are both, because of those experiences, a lot more mature than my daughter, even though she's older than them. And she is questioning her gender identity because they talk about it. I didn't smoke until I saw my first no smoking till you're 18 sign. Okay, it throws back to that old joke. These kids don't need to worry about this, and they get enough of it from social media, TikTok, Facebook, all this stuff, and their friends. What needs to be done is counselors need to talk to kids, need to actually pay attention to the kids. And when they notice that this kid is acting differently, ask the kid if there's an issue. And when the kid brings it up, not the counselor, when the kid brings it up, then the counselor needs to inform the parent, because these talks should be held by the parents with the kids, not by some random stranger that does not know the type of things that we're trying to impart to our kids, our ethics that we're trying to impart to these kids. It takes a village to raise a kid, but it takes a parent to teach them the ethics, to pass on what we feel is going to help them, because we deal with them all the time. It takes a village because, I'm sorry, I don't have enough time to grow my own crop so that I can feed my kid. I don't have the time to teach my kid while doing my job to keep all this other stuff going. That's why it takes a village. And I think that we've gotten stuck on all these things and everybody's trying to keep their hand in the pot. And we need to go, okay, hang on, let's identify this stuff as a school, which is what it's supposed to do, and then turn it over to the parents. This question will bring a lot more heartache to a lot of people than it will actually do any good, especially because the test is supposedly 100% anonymous in Douglas County. So you can't say, oh, well, Jamie is having issues.
Thank you.
You don't know who's having issues.
Ryan, thank you for your time. Anybody
I
else?
have a Jessica Harmon.
Okay, Jessica, you're on. If you could go ahead and state your name, please.
Jessica Harmon. My concern is I have a 5th and 6th grader, and I don't believe all of these questions are necessary for a 5th and 6th grader. As I understand, 5th grade and on take their Chromebooks home. So can they do the survey at home for a 5th or 6th grader, 7th grader, 8th grader who may or may not understand these questions, where the parents can better explain that to them? Because they take home their Chromebooks and some kids may or may not understand them. Just an idea.
Thank you for your comments.
And that's all we have online.
All righty. Any other discussion from the board on this topic? Did you have a motion? I know you missed the motion.
I missed the motion. Would you mind?
No, not at all. Go ahead. Who made the motion?
Okay, I made a motion to have the superintendent's office notify parents of surveys and to give them the option to opt out of the survey and to strike out question 4.
Got a couple, I got a question and a comment.
Okay.
I like striking question 4. I don't think kids need to answer that. I do have concern about the small percentage of kids that would answer that 3rd option. Do we have another way of helping them, identifying? You know what I mean? That's a real question.
You're gonna ask it without going the same.
On our safe voice, you can safe voice yourself. How often does that happen?
Bringing safe voice.
Like you can say I'm a danger to myself.
Oh, safe
Right?
voice. Oh, okay.
Safe voice.
I was thinking auto dialer. Sorry, I'm like,
Oh,
myself or what?
You do that all the time. Superintendent and parent.
Quite a bit. I mean, I think I would tell you that vast majority of our calls are of a suicide threat nature.
Okay. So I just, all I want to say is.
Or someone else, and not, so Joe's got a good point. Someone else reporting another student, not often necessarily the student reporting themselves.
I like not asking everybody this question. I would like us to somehow figure out how to help those that might need the help. And then my comment is, a lot of the public comments were, this is up to parents, this is up to parents, it's up to parents. Absolutely. And for you parents that are here, you're doing that. That's why you're here, right? When I started on the school board 6 years ago, I believe that same thing. Schools should not be doing this. This is only up to parents. And then I sat in a few expulsion hearings. And those will change your mind really fast. Because you see that not everybody has parents that care. It happens all the time, right? And those are the kids, like, your kids are great. You guys are involved. Your kids are good, right? You're teaching them what you want to teach them. That doesn't happen throughout the community. And so when they say it takes a village to raise a kid, sometimes the school district is that village. In the 6 years I've been on, I've probably done 30, unfortunately, maybe 20 expulsions. Only like once or twice where you're like, well, that kid has got to get out of here. On the other ones, you feel sorry for them. If that kid's got nothing at home, what can we do to help them? And so I appreciate this survey for that. We're finding those kids that don't have the support that your kids need. So.
Can I just make one comment?
Yes, go ahead.
You know, the whole thing about helping those kids, I totally agree with you. I think they need help, but this is an anonymous survey, so.
Thank you.
When the survey comes out and asks the question, and they say it, but you don't have a way to help them because you don't know who they are, but it just puts the question out there for these kids that don't need to be thinking about it.
Which question?
Question
Number
4.
Well, we're good with 4. We're good. I think we are.
Go ahead, trustee.
Now, the motion is to bring it back as an agenda item?
No.
It's a motion.
You're taking action. This motion is take action today.
Okay.
I'd like to say something too, if everyone else has spoken. You know, Rob, you said, what you just said was, I guess what I was trying to say, but it didn't come across as well as you did. And yes, I do agree. I mean, we do sit in expulsions, and I'm glad to see the parents that are here, because you do have your finger on the pulse of your children and what's going on. And we do see a lot of kids who aren't fortunate enough to have that. And I guess that's where I come from, and also my experiences of where I've been as far as working in nonprofits and working with underdog kids and kids that don't have parents like you all. So I guess I'm kind of a bleeding heart, I'll say. But yeah, I can also understand why putting a question like this on this, you don't really get to identify who it is. And so I hear you, and I agree with you on that. So I just wanted to explain where I stand, but I do feel it's very important that we do wrap our arms around kids that are struggling, and as a community, do whatever we can to help them, whether it's more counselors or social workers or whatever we can do. And that's what I'm saying. All right, so let's go ahead. We have a motion on the table. It was seconded by trustee Chichester, correct? Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on now to item number 12, and it's a summer school report, and it's by Miss Tommy Mack.
Good evening. I am Rami Mack, Executive Director of Education Services Area 3, and I am proud to serve the students of Douglas County School District. I just want to take a few minutes tonight to highlight for you the success of our summer school. This last summer, we did use Edgenuity, and this is the second summer we used Edgenuity, but also now a full year into the use of that program. You may recall that I did speak to you earlier this year about Edgenuity, and I can tell you that we've learned a lot and feel like we have found a way to make it work the very best that we can for our students. I wanted to shout out Mr. Adam Dedman, who's currently serving as the interim principal at Powell, but he also served as our summer school principal. And he managed not only all of our students in general education working on their credit recovery courses, and I'll talk about another course in a second, but also he also oversaw our extended school year program, and that program was also very successful. Students maintained skills, and we can say we had some of the very best outcomes we've ever seen, both in our regular summer school as well as our ES-wide program. And not only do we want to shout out Mr. Adam Dedman, but all of our amazing teachers and staff who served our students this summer, who after one of the most difficult school years of all of their careers, all of our careers, still came back this summer to make sure that kids had those opportunities. And so we are so grateful for all of them and their hard work. This year in our regular summer school, we had 285 students originally enrolled. Of those 285, we had 7 7th and 8th grade students that came just to work on their mathematics skills. They weren't there to recover credit, but instead had been identified as by teachers as students who could build their skills getting prepared for high school algebra. And so we're very excited that they attended the full 3 weeks of that program and did very well. Overall, out of 285, we did have 212 students recover credit. And of those students, we had 231 secondary credits recovered, which means that we had several students who were able to recover credits in 2 courses in the 4 weeks of summer school. And in 2 cases, we had students recover 3 credits or three courses. And that's because the type of Edgenuity program that we used this summer was their credit recovery version, which allows students to test out of content when they can demonstrate mastery of standard. So we're very pleased. That was very successful for many of those students. So overall, I just wanted to say congratulations to all of our teachers and our hardworking staff at summer school, and let you guys know that we feel like we're moving in the right direction with Edgenuity, and we're really learning how to use it, and we're just proud of that work. So unless there are questions.
That could be the good news. So, so many kids became credit deficient because of the situation we were thrust into. And it's so nice to hear these kind of successes. And they're getting on track.
And the one thing I didn't say to either is that we did make sure it was in person. And I really, that made a huge difference. I know that for a fact. And we made some exceptions for families where the requests were for a variety of medical reasons to maintain a remote learning environment, just like we've done for this school year. But most of those students came in person, and they just, when you have that face-to-face contact with a teacher who cares about you, makes those relationships, then we're more likely to see them be successful. So yes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask a question of, so you had 285 that enrolled. How many were found deficient and needed to be enrolled? Like what percentage of how many we should have had there?
So they were only, so do you mean what percentage of the ones that actually should have been there? I didn't do that data. I could certainly,
so a lot, there's a lot more that.
Yes, Board Member Jackson, I wish I could say that every student that needed to recover credit had attended summer school, but they did not. I could certainly pull that data for you and send you that information. I think we sent more than 500, so we were probably at about 50% of those students that we invited to attend.
That's
actually attended, yeah.
Pretty good, I think, I just kind of wondered where we were at with that. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Ron.
Real quickly, just this lady, what she does behind the behind the scenes is amazing.
Under the table.
I mean, if we go back to last year in Edgenuity and the number of kids that we had influx our system, Rami's expertise in Edgenuity and just the time that she spends well after the workday to get in courses. And I think that people just don't understand how much work it is behind the scenes to enter every student in their classes. And so my hat's off to her and her great leadership on summer school as well. While Adam's in charge, Rami still has to invest a lot of time and energy to make that happen. So thank you, Rami.
Thank you so much.
All right, and moving on to item number 13, designation of position of critical shortage. And we have our HR director, Mr. Gerger.
Thank you, President Gilkerson, members of the board. Thank you for all you do and have done through this challenging time. I know it's not been an easy couple of weeks, so thank you for your leadership. What we're requesting here is that you designate bus drivers as a position that we can fill under critical shortage. If you remember, we've done this several times over the last couple of months. This allows us to hire bus drivers that have retired from the state and bring them back, and it doesn't affect their PERS. It is a position that has been increasingly difficult to fill with qualified, competent people. We believe that this would give us more opportunities to fill these positions with retirees out there willing to come back and work.
All right, thank you. Questions?
I noticed on the news, and I don't think it was Douglas County, but some of the bus drivers are on strike.
That's
Does that affect us?
That's public transportation in Reno.
Oh,
RTC, yeah.
I move that we approve the request for the position of critical shortage and the bus drivers.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by trustee Chichester, second by trustee Magnata. Is there any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, we're on to item 14, and this is the first reading of bylaw number 040. This is for discussion and for possible action.
All right. President. We just gonna jump into it? What?
Can we do this next meeting?
Let's finish it up. Come on, we're almost done.
We're so
Come on,
close.
We're so close. Go
All
ahead.
right, we'll talk quickly. So this came at the request of the board to identify a process that we would use if we have a board vacancy. This is a very rough draft. My feelings are not going to be hurt for any suggestions that you have. I just got it in the paper and some of it not a very articulate document. So again, just that the process that we had used, that when a vacancy exists, the deadline to submit the letters of interest, the date, time, and location of the regularly scheduled meeting, the notice would include that. And then that we have historically used these 5 questions through, I think, 3 trustee vacancy filling. We use these 5 questions, so that's why they're on here. And then just, I think maybe some of the points is the deadline for when we would accept. In this last, when we appointed Heather, we tried to give candidates as much time as they could. We set a Monday deadline, knowing that the agenda needed to be posted, packets printed by Tuesday, Wednesday of that week to get into your packet. So that's kind of what we thought about in the past. And then we've also asked you to submit 2 questions. I definitely agree what we'd like to do is that your priority question gets asked unless it's redundant or for some reason it is illegal. That our legal counsel advises us not to ask that question. And we'd run those questions through there, but obviously that would be our desire is that you all get a priority question when you ask. So it's up for you for discussion and beautification.
Sure, go ahead, trustee.
I read through the rough draft and it's pretty concise with what our process has been. And I'll just restate my position that I'm okay with it.
Trustee Lehman?
Just 2 concerns, even though Mr. Lewis said that the goal is to have the primary question asked. This process allows that for not to happen. In fact, it allows for nobody's primary question to be asked. So I'm thinking another bullet point that just specifies that that everybody's primary question will be asked. Because even if it's redundant, what?
Unless it's illegal.
Unless it's illegal. Because even if it's redundant, it gets asked, right? And you get the bonus of getting 2 of your questions asked, because you get somebody else to ask your primary one, and you get to ask your second one. But that's all I would change on this.
Okay, so I'm going to move approval of the first reading with that change.
Second.
You gotta be fast.
Are you okay with that, Karen? Sure, okay. Okay. Any public comment at this time? Seeing none, take it to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? First reading passes 7-0. Thank you. All right. We have. No.
We do have a need for a very fast closed session.
We do? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so.
Very fast.
I'd move into per NRS 288.2204 closed session.
A second.
Okay, any public comment on that? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in closed session. We have to go in the other room? Okay.
agenda?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just didn't see it on.
It's on here.
It's on the
It's in your
bottom.
red, it's in your red folder, that's why.
Must have missed that one. Okay,
Um,
no, I don't have anything yet.
And when are you in town?
I'm gone next week, next meeting, but I'll be here after that.
So are you okay if we hold it in October at the lake?
October would be great.
It'll be at the lake though, are you okay with that?
Well, if you give me a ride.
I think you need to have it in the, I think there's gonna be a lot of people down here that wanna go to it too.
But there's be people up at the lake too, won't there? Interested, what do you think?
I think people will come to the lake. It's not that far. I come down here every day.
A small venue.
It'll be.
All right, we just wanted to make sure since it was your.
Yeah, I'd
We wanted-
appreciate it if we could have it in October.
We wanted you here.
I mean,
That
we could
makes
wait till
sense.
November. I don't see, but sooner the better as far as I'm concerned, but
All right,
October would be great.
Okay,
all righty.
we'll talk a little bit more about it, Doug, and then we'll go October, November. whatever.
Try to go with the best thing. All right, anybody else want to add anything else onto our future agenda items? I guess we can take off one of these, right?
Yep.
And so it just leaves with 3, okay. We don't have to make an action item on it, do we?
No, public comment.
I know, last thing is, Ross is out the door. Public comment, calling for any public comment. John, is there
Ross is
anything?
raising his hand.
I do have one person that, I have a Brandon Taylor that has raised their hand.
Okay, Brandon, can you hear? Oh, he can't hear me, can he?
Yeah, I can hear you.
No, Brandon,
There
would
you
you
go.
like to go ahead for public comment? Sir, please state your
Just
name.
curious about Brandon Taylor for the record. I was curious about the public or the closed meeting. NRS 241 doesn't allow it unless it's for what? Why was there a closed meeting?
We can't tell you what we discussed, but it's for employee personnel reasons.
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Brandon. Have a good night.
Yep.
Great. Public comment anymore? Guess what? Meeting adjourned. It is 7:19.